Qur'an Chapter 13, Surah Ar-Ra'd, Thunder, by Sayyid Qutb. Translation by Muhammad Al-Amrani. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Alif, Lam, Mim, Ra, these are the verses of the book. That which has been sent down to you from your sustainer is the truth, yet most people do not believe. God is He who raised the heavens without any pillars that you can see, then established Himself upon the throne. He has subjected the sun and the moon, each running its course for an appointed term. He governs all affairs and details His signs, so that you may have firm faith in meeting your sustainer. And He it is who spread out the earth, and placed therein firm mountains and flowing rivers. And of every kind of fruit He created two mates. He causes the night to cover the day. Verily, in all this are signs for people who reflect. And on the earth are tracts adjoining one another, and gardens of vines and fields of grain and palm trees, some growing in clusters from a single root and others standing alone. They are all watered with the same water, yet we make some of them excel others in taste. Surely in this are signs for people who use their reason. But if you are to marvel, then marvel at their saying, "What? When we have become dust, shall we indeed be created anew?" It is they who disbelieve in their sustainer, it is they who shall have shackles around their necks, and it is they who are destined for the fire wherein they shall abide forever. They ask you to hasten the coming of evil before good, though many exemplary punishments have already come to pass before them. But truly, your sustainer is full of forgiveness for people despite their wrongdoing, and indeed your sustainer is severe in retribution. And those who disbelieve say, "Why has no sign been sent down to him from his sustainer?" But you are only a warner, and for every people there is a guide. God knows what every female bears within her womb, and what the wombs may diminish or increase. For with Him everything is determined with perfect measure. He is the knower of the unseen and the seen, the great, the Most High. It is all the same whether any of you speaks in secret or aloud, whether one hides under the cover of night or walks openly in the light of day. 0. Each one has companions before and behind, watching over him by God's command. Truly, God does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. And when God wills harm for a people, there is no turning it back, nor will they find any protector besides Him. He it is who shows you the lightning, inspiring fear and hope, and who brings into being heavy clouds. And the thunder extols His limitless glory with His praise, and so do the angels out of awe of Him. And He sends forth the thunderbolts, striking with them whom He wills, while they dispute about God, yet He is mighty in His power. To Him alone belongs the call of truth, while those whom they invoke apart from Him do not respond to them in any way. It is as if one were to stretch forth his hands towards water, begging it to reach his mouth, but it does not reach it. And the supplication of those who deny the truth is but in vain. And unto God prostrates all that is in the heavens and on earth, willingly or unwillingly, and their very shadows in the morning and the evening hours. Say, "Who is the sustainer of the heavens and the earth?" Say, "It is God." Say, "Have you then taken protectors apart from Him, who have no power to benefit or harm themselves?" Say, "Can the blind and the seeing be deemed equal? Or can darkness and light be alike? Or have they attributed to God partners who create as He creates, so that the creation appears similar to them?" Say, "God is the creator of all things, and He alone is the one, the overpowering. He sends down water from the sky, and the valleys flow according to their measure, and the torrent carries a swelling foam. And from that which they heat in the fire to make ornaments or utensils arises a similar foam. Thus does God illustrate the difference between truth and falsehood. As for the foam, it vanishes as scum, but that which benefits people remains on the earth. Thus does God set forth parables. For those who respond to their sustainer is the finest reward. But those who do not respond to Him, if they possessed all that is in the earth, and as much again, they would surely offer it as ransom. It is they for whom a terrible reckoning awaits, and their abode shall be hell, an evil resting place. The surah begins with a foundational concept of faith, the revelation of this book and the truth it contains, a truth that serves as the cornerstone for all other matters of belief, such as the oneness of God, faith in the resurrection, and righteous deeds in life. All of these arise from the certainty that the one who has commanded this is God, and that this Qur'an is a revelation from him, sent to his messenger. Peace and blessings be upon him. Alif, Lam, Mim, Ra. These are the verses of the book, and what has been revealed to you from your sustainer is the truth. But most people do not believe. The letters Alif, Lam, Mim, Ra. These are the verses of the book. These signs of the Qur'an, or these signs pointing to the book, bear witness that it is revealed by God. The very formulation of its words from the elemental letters is itself evidence that it is from God, not the work of any created being, no matter who or what they may be. And what has been revealed to you from your sustainer is the truth. It is truth alone, absolute truth, pure and unalloyed, untouched by falsehood, untainted by doubt or hesitation. These letters are signs that it is the truth, signs that it is from God, and what comes from God can only be truth without a shadow of uncertainty. But most people do not believe. Most do not believe that it is divinely revealed, nor in the truths that arise from belief in this revelation. The oneness of God, submission to Him alone, resurrection and righteous deeds in life. This opening passage encapsulates the entire theme of the surah and hints at its core issues. From here it moves to a contemplation of the signs of divine power and the wonders of creation. Signs that point to the Creator's wisdom, His power, and His governance. These signs proclaim that divine wisdom necessitates revelation to guide humanity and resurrection to hold them accountable. And the omnipotence of the Creator necessitates that He should be capable of resurrecting humanity and returning them to the one who first created them, who brought the entire universe into being before them, and who has subjugated it all for their benefit, to test them in what He has granted them. The miraculous brush begins to paint vast cosmic scenes, strokes across the heavens, strokes across the earth, and strokes depicting the marvels of life hidden within the earth itself. And then it turns to wonder at those who deny the resurrection despite these immense signs, demanding for themselves a punishment, or asking for a sign beyond what has already been given. It is God who raised the heavens without pillars that you see, then established Himself on the throne. He subjected the sun and the moon, each running its course for an appointed term. He regulates all matters, and He details the signs so that you may be certain of the meeting with your sustainer. It is He who spread out the earth and placed upon it firm mountains and rivers, and of every fruit He made in it 2 pairs. He causes the night to cover the day. Indeed, in that are signs for a people who reflect. And on the earth are neighbouring tracts and gardens of vines and crops and palm trees, some growing together from a single root, and others standing alone, watered with the same water. Yet we make some of them exceed others in taste. Indeed, in that are signs for a people who reason. And if you are amazed, then their statement is even more amazing. When we have become dust, will we truly be brought into a new creation? These are the ones who disbelieve in their sustainer, and these are the ones whose necks will be shackled, and they will be the companions of the fire, abiding therein forever. They impatiently urge you to bring about evil before good, though examples of punishment have already occurred before them. And indeed, your sustainer is full of forgiveness for the people despite their wrongdoing, and indeed your sustainer is severe in punishment. And those who disbelieve say, "Why has a sign not been sent down to him from his sustainer?" You are only a warner, and for every people is a guide. The heavens, whatever meaning they may hold, and whatever understanding humanity may derive from the term in different ages, are placed before the human gaze, vast and awe-inspiring, especially when one pauses to contemplate them in solitude. They are suspended without pillars that are visible to the human eye. This is the first touch in this vast cosmic scene, the first stroke upon the canvas of human perception, as one stands in awe before this immense spectacle, contemplating it, and recognizing that no one could raise such heavens without pillars, or even with pillars, except God. The utmost that human hands can raise, with or without pillars, are the small, feeble structures confined to narrow corners of the earth, structures that do not extend beyond their limited domain. And yet people extol the grandeur, the ingenuity and the precision of such constructions, oblivious to the heavens that encompass them, raised without visible pillars, and to the true power, grandeur and perfection beyond human imagination that lies behind them. From this awe-inspiring visible height, the verse shifts to an even more awe-inspiring unseen realm that the human mind can scarcely grasp. Then he established himself on the throne. If height is the measure, then this is the highest. If greatness is the criterion, then this is the greatest. It is absolute exaltation, depicted in a form that brings the boundless closer to human understanding, as is the Quranic way of conveying the infinite to finite minds. This is another magnificent touch of the miraculous brush, a touch of absolute transcendence, complementing the first touch of visible heights, harmonizing with it in the flow of the narrative. From this absolute transcendence, the discourse moves to subjugation, the subjugation of the sun and the moon, the visible heights that captivated humanity in the first stroke, now rendered subservient to the one who is beyond all heights, the sun and the moon, each running its course for an appointed term. Here we pause briefly before continuing to reflect on the intricate interplay of contrasts within this scene. Before us stands the visible height of the heavens, juxtaposed with the unseen height of the throne. Exaltation is counterbalanced by subjugation. The sun and the moon, contrasting in essence, one a star, the other a planet, also contrast in their times of appearance, one for the day, the other for the night, and then the narrative proceeds, integrating exaltation and subjugation into a framework of wisdom and governance, each running its course for an appointed term. Each moves within defined boundaries, adhering to a preordained system, whether in their annual and daily orbits or in their ultimate trajectories, until the appointed time when this visible cosmos will be transformed. He regulates all matters, the grand movements of stars and planets, the flow of time and the course of human affairs, are under his meticulous regulation, the one who subjugates the sun and the moon and governs the vast celestial bodies in their appointed paths. His regulation is precise, his decree awe-inspiring, and part of his regulation is that he details the signs, organizing and presenting them in a coherent sequence, revealing each at its proper time, for its intended purpose and toward its ultimate goal, so that you may be certain of the meeting with your sustainer. When you see these signs, detailed and harmonized, and witness the signs of the cosmos, created by the hand of the Creator, depicted by the verses of the Qur'an, you come to understand the wisdom, design, and perfection behind them. This realization leads inevitably to the certainty of a return to the Creator after this worldly life, so that the deeds of humanity may be evaluated and recompensed. This is the completion of the design, suggested by the wisdom and governance that brought forth the first creation. The narrative then descends from the heavens to the earth, painting its first broad strokes. It is he who spread out the earth and placed upon it firm mountains and rivers, and of every fruit he made in it 2 pairs. He causes the night to cover the day. Indeed, in that are signs for a people who reflect. The broad features of the earth are laid out. Its expanse, its stability through the mountains, and the flow of rivers that bring it life. These are the primary strokes of the earthly canvas, harmonious and complementary. And within this vast expanse, the earth holds its own marvels, both in its vegetation and in the duality of life, and of every fruit he made in it 2 pairs. This duality extends to the phenomena of day and night. He causes the night to cover the day. The succession of night and day, this interplay of light and darkness, is itself a marvel, evoking wonder in the observant mind. Indeed, in that are signs for a people who reflect. Once more, the Quran calls upon humanity to reflect on the artistic contrasts within this divine tableau, the stability of the mountains against the flowing rivers, the pairing of fruits, the alternation of night and day, and the harmony between heaven and earth. Together, these elements form a unified cosmic masterpiece. Then the divine brush moves from the broad strokes of the earth to finer details, depicting the diversity of its terrain and the richness of its vegetation. And on the earth are neighbouring tracts, tracts and gardens of vines and crops and palm trees, some growing together from a single root and others standing alone, watered with the same water, yet we make some of them exceed others in taste. Indeed, in that are signs for a people who reason. These earthly scenes are so familiar that many pass by them without even glancing at them, unless the soul reconnects with its innate disposition, with the universe of which it is a part. Then the soul separates itself momentarily from the cosmos to contemplate it, only to rejoin it in awe and wonder. And on the earth are neighbouring tracts, different in their textures and qualities. Were they identical, they would form a single tract, but instead they are varied, fertile and barren, lush and desolate, soft and rocky, irrigated and parched. These contrasts are the first fine strokes of the divine brush. This diversity extends to the vegetation, gardens of vines and crops and palm trees, each representing a different type of plant, climbing vines, towering palms, and the myriad herbs and flowers that fill the earth with colour and fragrance. Even within the date palms there is diversity, some growing together from a single root and others standing alone. All of this watered with the same water, and yet God causes their fruits to differ in taste, and we make some of them exceed others in taste. Who but the Creator, the Sustainer, the Willer, could bring forth such diversity from the same soil with the same water? Indeed, in that are signs for a people who reason. Thus, the Qur'an renews human perception of the familiar, transforming it into a source of endless wonder and a testament to the Creator's infinite power and wisdom. In this way, the Qur'an remains ever new, continually awakening the human heart and mind to the wonders of creation, which are inexhaustible in their depth and beauty. Finally, the surah turns back to those who remain heedless of these signs, marveling at their blindness and obstinacy. And if you are amazed, then their statement is even more amazing. When we have become dust, will we truly be brought into a new creation? These are the ones who disbelieve in their Sustainer, and these are the ones whose necks will be shackled, and they will be the companions of the fire, abiding therein forever. And truly, it is a wonder worthy of wonderment that after such an overwhelming exposition, there are still those who ask, when we have become dust, shall we indeed be brought forth in a new creation? The one who created this vast and majestic universe and shaped it in this wondrous way is surely capable of bringing mankind back to life in a new resurrection. But their denial stems from disbelief in their Sustainer, the very one who created them and governs their affairs. It is but the chains of the mind and the heart that bind them. Thus their recompense shall be chains around their necks, a perfect symmetry between the shackles of reason and the shackles of punishment. Their recompense shall be the fire, in which they shall abide forever. For they have disabled all the faculties that make a human being noble and honoured by God. They have degraded themselves in this life, and so in the hereafter. They shall reap the consequences of their degradation, a life even lower than the one they lived, devoid of thought, feeling, and true perception. These are the very people who marvel at the idea that God could resurrect them in a new creation, even though their own marvelling is indeed the true marvel. They hasten to demand that you bring forth the punishment of God rather than seeking his guidance or hoping for his mercy. And they ask you to hasten the evil before the good. And just as they fail to contemplate the horizons of the universe and the signs of God scattered across the heavens and the earth, so too do they fail to reflect on the fate of those who came before them, those who hastened God's punishment and were struck by it, leaving behind examples for others to heed. And there have already been given before them exemplary punishments. Yet they remain heedless even of the fate of their forebears among humanity, though those fates hold lessons for anyone willing to take them to heart. And your Sustainer is full of forgiveness for people despite their wrongdoing. Indeed, he is merciful toward his servants, even when they wrong themselves for a time. He opens for them the gate of forgiveness, inviting them to enter through repentance. But his punishment is severe for those who persist in their wrongdoing and stubbornly refuse to enter through the gate he has opened, and your Sustainer is severe in punishment. In this context, The narrative presents God's forgiveness before his punishment, juxtaposing his mercy with the heedlessness of those who hasten toward punishment rather than seeking guidance. This contrast reveals the vast chasm between the good that God wills for them and the evil they bring upon themselves, highlighting their blindness, the hardness of their hearts, and their degradation, which justifies their ultimate descent into the fire. From here, the discourse continues to marvel at the state of these people who fail to see the multitude of signs in the cosmos and instead demand a single specific sign from God to be sent down upon his messenger. A single sign, despite the entire universe around them being full of signs. And those who disbelieve say, "Why has no sign been sent down upon him from his sustainer? You are but a warner, and for every people there is a guide." They demand a miracle. But miracles are not the work of the messenger nor his prerogative. It is God who sends them in his wisdom when he deems them necessary. You are but a warner, one who warns and opens eyes to the truth, just like every messenger before you. For God has sent messengers to all peoples as guides, each to their own community, and for every people there is a guide. As for miraculous signs, their timing and purpose belong to the one who governs the universe and its inhabitants. Thus concludes the first journey into the expanses of the cosmos and its accompanying reflections. And the narrative begins a new journey into a different realm, the realm of the self, of emotions and of living beings. God knows what every female bears, and what the wombs diminish, and what they increase. And everything with him is in perfect measure. He is the knower of the unseen and the seen, the great, the exalted. It is all the same to him whether one of you conceals his speech or declares it openly, or whether one hides under the cover of night or moves freely during the day. For him are angels in succession before him and behind him, guarding him by the command of God. Indeed, God does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. And when God wills harm for a people, there is no repelling it, and they will find no protector other than him. Here the human sensibility stands in awe, trembling beneath the weight of these profound images and the rhythmic cadence of these lofty words. It is transfixed as it follows the trails of God's knowledge, knowledge that encompasses the hidden recesses of the womb and the secret chambers of the heart, that penetrates the veils of night and the openness of day. Every concealed thought, every whispered word, every act of hiding or revealing is laid bare under the all-encompassing gaze of God's knowledge. And over each human being are appointed guardians, tracking every motion, every thought, and every intention by the decree of God. This is an overwhelming awe, a reverent fear that leaves the soul with no refuge but to seek shelter in God, finding peace and solace in his embrace. The believer knows that God's knowledge encompasses all things. Yet the impact of this overarching truth upon the heart cannot compare to the impact of its individual manifestations, as vividly portrayed in this wondrous narrative. What abstract concept could match the sheer power of this declaration? God knows what every female bears, and what the wombs diminish and what they increase, and everything with him is in perfect measure. When the imagination travels to every female in this vast universe, whether in desert or city, in dwelling or cave, in hidden burrows or open forests, it envisions God's knowledge extending to every pregnancy, to every drop of blood that is diminished or increased within those wombs. What abstract truth could rival the vividness of this statement? It is all the same to him whether one of you conceals his speech or declares it openly, or whether one hides under the cover of night or moves freely during the day. For him are angels in succession before him and behind him, guarding him by the command of God. Here the imagination follows every whisper and every shout, every hidden act and every open deed in this vast universe. It envisions God's knowledge pursuing every individual, recording every fleeting thought and every moment of stillness throughout the hours of the night and the edges of the day. The earlier portrayals of the vast cosmos are no greater or deeper than these portrayals of the hidden realms of the self, the mysteries of the unseen, and the secrets of the soul. These are as profound as those in their balance and symmetry. Let us reflect on the marvels of expression and imagery in these verses. God knows what every female bears, and what the wombs diminish and what they increase, and everything with him is in perfect measure. After describing God's knowledge of what the wombs diminish or increase, the verse concludes with the statement that everything is in perfect measure with him. The harmony between the concept of measure and the themes of increase and decrease is striking. This theme relates to the earlier discussion of resurrection, as well as to the subsequent depiction of water flowing through valleys according to their measure, all in alignment with the overarching symmetry of the surah. The knower of the unseen and the seen, the great, the exalted. The words the great and the exalted cast their unique shadows upon the heart, evoking awe and reverence. For no created being is free of some deficiency that diminishes its greatness. No matter how great something appears, its greatness pales in comparison to the mere mention of God. And as for the exalted, who can truly describe its depth? Neither I nor any other commentator can fully articulate the grandeur of the great, the exalted. It is all the same to him whether one of you conceals his speech or declares it openly, or whether one hides under the cover of night or moves freely during the day. Here, the symmetry of expression is apparent, yet the word moves freely, sarib, draws attention with its subtle nuance. Its sound evokes a sense of concealment or near concealment, even though its meaning refers to movement. This delicate choice of word perfectly suits the context of hidden knowledge, secret whispers, and the unseen guardians tracking every motion. It conveys the meaning with gentleness and subtlety without disrupting the mood of divine omniscience and hidden mysteries. For him are angels in succession before him and behind him, guarding him by the command of God. These guardians, who track every human being, recording every fleeting moment and thought, are described simply as being by the command of God. The narrative refrains from delving into their nature or attributes, leaving their mystery intact. This deliberate restraint preserves the atmosphere of awe and reverence created by the text. To attempt to unveil or detail what God has left veiled would only diminish the majesty of this portrayal. Indeed, God does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. Here lies a profound truth that places responsibility squarely upon human beings. God's will concerning humanity unfolds in accordance with their own actions and inner transformations. Blessings and hardships, honor and humiliation, all follow from the conditions of their hearts and deeds. Though God knows what they will do before they do it, his decree upon them comes as a response to their state, unfolding in time according to their actions. This weighty truth lays a heavy responsibility upon humanity, for it is God's timeless will and unchanging law that his decree upon them is tied to their own behavior. This truth, while burdensome, also affirms the honor bestowed upon humankind, that they themselves, by their own actions, become the instruments through which God's will is executed. And after the principle is established, the discourse moves to illustrate the condition of God altering the state of a people toward evil. For, as understood from the verse, they themselves first altered what was within their hearts toward wickedness. Thus, God willed harm for them. And when God wills harm for a people, there is no turning it back, and they will have no protector besides him. Here the discourse highlights this aspect, the inevitability of punishment for those who bring it upon themselves, without mentioning the other aspect, that of changing a people's state toward goodness. This is because the narrative speaks of those who hasten toward evil before hoping for good. And earlier, forgiveness was presented before punishment to emphasize their heedlessness. Now, however, the dire consequences of their actions are emphasized alone as a stark warning. For when God's punishment comes upon them, deservedly because of what lies within their own selves, none can repel it, nor can any ally or protector save them. The discourse then takes a new journey, leading us into another valley. Yet this valley is connected to the one we have just traversed. It is a realm where the sights of nature and the stirrings of the soul are interwoven in harmonious imagery, shadow and rhythm. Over this valley hovers an air of awe and supplication, toil and trepidation, leaving the soul in a state of anticipation and caution, deeply affected and moved. It is he who shows you the lightning, inspiring fear and hope, and who forms the heavy clouds. And the thunder glorifies his praise, as do the angels in awe of him. And he sends forth the thunderbolts, striking with them whomsoever he wills. Yet they dispute about God, though he is mighty in his power. To him belongs the call of truth, and those whom they call upon besides him cannot respond to them at all, like one who stretches out his hands to water, asking it to reach his mouth, but it cannot reach him. And the supplication of the disbelievers is nothing but self-deception. To God prostrates all that is in the heavens and the earth, willingly or unwillingly, as do their shadows in the morning and the evening. Say, who is the sustainer of the heavens and the earth? Say, God. Say, have you then taken protectors besides him who cannot benefit or harm themselves? Say, is the blind man equal to the one who sees? Or are the depths of darkness equal to the light? Or have they ascribed to God partners who created as he has created, so that the creation seemed alike to them? Say, God is the creator of all things, and he is the one, the Almighty. The lightning, the thunder, the clouds, these are phenomena familiar to all, as are the thunderbolts that sometimes accompany them. Each of these phenomena leaves its mark upon the soul, evoking awe and reverence, whether for those who understand their natural causes or for those who remain utterly ignorant of their workings. Here the discourse gathers these phenomena together and adds to them the presence of angels, shadows, glorification, prostration, fear, hope, and the call of truth. To these it adds yet another image, that of a desperate man stretching his hands toward water, yearning for it to reach his lips, but it never does. These elements do not converge randomly or coincidentally. Rather, they come together to cast their shadows over the scene, enveloping it in an atmosphere of reverence and anticipation, fear and hope, supplication and trembling. All of this serves to portray the absolute and unique authority of God, who alone holds dominion over harm and benefit, negating all false claims to divinity and warning of the dire consequences of associating partners with him. It is he who shows you the lightning, inspiring fear and hope. It is God who shows you this cosmic phenomenon emerging from the natural order of the universe, which he alone created in this particular manner and endowed with its unique properties and manifestations. Among these is the lightning, which he shows you according to his divine laws. You fear it because it shakes your very nerves, because it may transform into a destructive force, and because it may serve as a harbinger of a devastating storm, as your own experiences have taught you. Yet you also hope for good from it, for it may be followed by abundant rain that revives barren lands and causes rivers to flow. And he forms the heavy clouds. It is he who produces the clouds, those water-laden masses suspended in the sky. By his divine law governing the creation and structure of the universe, the clouds form and the rain descends. Were it not for his design of the cosmos in this particular way, no clouds would form, nor would rain fall. And even understanding how clouds form and how rain descends does not diminish the wonder of this phenomenon or its profound significance. For these processes unfold according to a uniquely designed system that no one but God has ordained. This system operates according to precise laws established by none other than the Creator himself. Indeed, this universe didn't create itself, nor did it embed within itself the laws by which it operates. And the thunder glorifies his praise, as do the angels in awe of him. And the thunder, this resounding, reverberating sound that echoes through the skies, is but another manifestation of the cosmic order created by God. Whatever its specific nature or causes, it is a reflection of his creative power. It is an expression of praise and glorification for the might that fashioned this intricate system. Just as a beautifully crafted object testifies to the skill of its maker, so too does every phenomenon in the universe glorify and proclaim the perfection of its creator. It may well be that the literal meaning of glorifies is intended here, and that the thunder in its very essence glorifies God with conscious awareness. Such mysteries, hidden from human understanding, must be approached with faith and submission, for humanity knows but little of the workings of this vast universe, or even of their own selves. The Quranic expression deliberately chooses to describe the thunder as glorifying God with praise, following the Quranic method of imagery in such contexts, imbuing lifeless scenes of the cosmos with the attributes of life and motion. This allows these silent elements to participate in the dynamic, living scene portrayed, an approach I have elaborated upon in my book, The Quranic Art of Imagery. Here the scene is one of living beings in a natural setting, angels glorifying God out of awe, supplications being raised to him, and invocations directed toward false deities. Among these moving elements of worshippers and supplicants, thunder joins in as though it were a living being, its voice resounding in glorification and prayer. This atmosphere of reverence and supplication is further enriched by the lightning, thunder, and heavy clouds, culminating in the fiery bolts of lightning that God sends forth, striking whomever he wills. These bolts of lightning are natural phenomena arising from the very structure of the universe as God has fashioned it. And yet, at times, God uses them to strike down those who have altered the state of their inner selves in accordance with his wisdom that decrees they are unworthy of respite, for he knows that granting them further time would bring no good. Thus, they become deserving of destruction. What is astonishing is that amid the overwhelming power of lightning, the roaring thunder, the crashing storms, and the awe-inspiring scene of thunder glorifying God with praise, alongside the angels trembling in reverence, there arise feeble human voices, disputing about God, the source of all these mighty forces, and the origin of these resounding voices, which rise far above any argument or denial. And they dispute about God, though he is tremendous in might. And so, their frail voices are lost amidst this vast, reverberating scene of supplication, glorification, thunderclaps, and lightning strikes, all of which proclaim the existence of God, the very one they dispute about, and his oneness, as the glorification and praise of these immense cosmic forces are directed toward him alone. In this scene, set against the backdrop of the vast universe and the trembling angels glorifying him in awe, where then are these frail human voices disputing about God, though he is mighty in might? These humans dare to dispute about God and even ascribe partners to him, invoking these so-called partners alongside him. Yet only the invocation of God is true. All other invocations are mere delusions, bringing only futility and torment. Unto him alone is the call of truth, whereas those whom they call upon besides him cannot respond to them in any way. They are like one who stretches out his hands toward water, hoping that it may reach his mouth, but it does not reach it. And the prayer of those who deny the truth is nothing but in vain. The scene here is vibrant, filled with motion and struggle, depicting a desperate, futile effort. There is but one true call, the call unto God, turning to him, trusting in him, and seeking his aid, mercy, and guidance. All other calls are false, lost, and futile. All other pursuits are but illusions. Do you not see the state of those who call upon others besides him? Look at one of them, a desperate, thirsty soul, stretching out his arms and spreading his hands, his mouth agape in longing, calling out for water to reach his lips. But the water never comes. It does not quench his thirst, despite all his effort, longing, and toil. Such, too, is the invocation of those who deny the one God when they call upon other deities, and the prayer of those who deny the truth is nothing but in vain. And in what kind of setting does this desperate caller fail to receive even a single drop of water? It is amidst the lightning, thunder, and heavy clouds, moving at the command of the One, the Almighty, the Subduer. At the same time, while these disillusioned souls fashion deities for themselves other than God, turning toward them with hope and supplication, everything in existence bows down to God alone. All are subject to his will, bound by his laws. The believer submits willingly out of faith, while the disbeliever submits unwillingly out of compulsion and inevitability. No one can escape God's will or exist outside the laws he has decreed for life. And to God bows down all who are in the heavens and on earth, willingly or unwillingly, as do their shadows in the mornings and the evenings. Since the overarching atmosphere here is one of worship and supplication, the discourse describes submission to God's will as prostration, the ultimate expression of servitude. The verse includes not only the beings in the heavens and the earth, but also their shadows, which prostrate in the mornings and the evenings. These shadows are inseparable from the beings themselves, and their inclusion lends a remarkable depth to the scene. It creates an image of dual prostration, of beings and their shadows together. The entire universe, with its beings and their shadows, is portrayed as humbly bowing before God, whether out of faith or compulsion. And yet, amidst this grand submission, there are those deluded souls who invoke deities besides him. Within the wonder of this scene, a tone of ironic questioning arises, a tone suited perfectly to the absurdity of polytheism in the face of such overwhelming reality. It is a tone of mockery and scorn. Say, who is the sustainer of the heavens and the earth? Say God. Say, have you then taken for worship others besides him, who cannot benefit or harm even themselves? Say, can the blind and the seeing be deemed equal? Or can darkness and light be compared? Or do they claim that there are partners with God who have created as he has created, so that this creation appears similar to them? Say, God is the creator of all things, and he is the one, the Almighty. Ask them, though everyone in the heavens and the earth is subject to God's will and power, whether willingly or unwillingly, who is the sustainer of the heavens and the earth? This question is not posed for the sake of an answer, for the Quranic discourse has already provided it. Say, God. Then ask them further, have you then taken others besides him as protectors, who lack the power to benefit or harm even themselves? Pose this question to them despite their obvious error, as if to confront them with their absurdity. The issue is crystal clear. Like the difference between the blind and the seeing, or between darkness and light, the mention of blindness and sight points to the disbelievers and the believers, respectively. Blindness alone prevents them from seeing the manifest truth that is felt by all who dwell in the heavens and the earth. Likewise, the mention of darkness and light refers to their state and the state of the believers. It is the enveloping darkness that blinds them to the evident reality of the truth. Do they perhaps imagine that these partners they call upon besides God have created anything akin to what God has created, so that they are confused as to which creation belongs to God and which belongs to their so-called partners? If this were the case, they could at least claim some justification for their polytheism. But it is not so. This is biting irony, for they see everything around them created by God, while these fabricated deities of theirs have created nothing. Indeed, these deities are themselves created, and yet despite this glaring truth, they worship these powerless creations, bowing to them in servitude. It is the most irrational and degrading form of thought imaginable. The conclusion to this scornful questioning comes with a statement of irrefutable truth, against which no argument or objection can stand. Say, God is the creator of all things, and he is the one, the Almighty. Here is God's oneness in creation and his ultimate dominance, the highest degree of sovereignty. Thus, the issue of polytheism is framed between the prostration of all that is in the heavens and the earth to God, willingly or unwillingly, and the absolute power of the Almighty, the subduer. This argument is preceded by the lightning, thunder, and bolts of destruction, and by the glorification of God with praise, whether out of awe or hope. How, then, could any heart withstand such overwhelming evidence unless it were blind, shrouded in darkness, until destruction itself overtakes it? Before we depart from this valley, let us reflect upon the remarkable contrast in the mode of expression, between fear and hope, between the blinding flash of lightning and the heavy-laden clouds. Indeed, the heavy-laden here, besides its reference to water, partakes in the quality of contrast with the fleeting light brilliance of the lightning, between the thunder glorifying his praise and the angels glorifying him in awe, between the call of truth and the call of futile effort, between the heavens and the earth, and the prostration of all that exists within them, willingly or unwillingly, between the forms and their shadows, between morning and evening, between the blind and the seeing, between darkness and light, between the Creator, the Almighty and all-subjugating, and the false associates who create nothing, who lack the power to benefit or harm even themselves. Thus, the discourse proceeds with its characteristic precision, dazzling brilliance, and wondrous harmony. And so the narrative continues, presenting a parable of truth and falsehood, of the enduring call and the fleeting cry swept away by the wind, of tranquil goodness and volatile evil. The parable drawn here manifests the power of God, the One, the Almighty, and the wisdom of the Creator, who has fashioned all things in perfect measure and harmony. It is akin to the natural phenomena that permeate the broader context of the surah's themes. He sends down water from the sky, and the valleys flow according to their measure, and the torrent carries along swelling foam. And from that which they heat in fire, seeking to make ornaments or utensils, there arises a similar foam. Thus, God sets forth the parable of truth and falsehood. As for the foam, it passes away as scum, but that which benefits mankind remains in the earth. Thus, God sets forth parables. The sending down of water from the sky so that the valleys flow with it according to their capacity harmonizes with the imagery of lightning, thunder, and the heavy-laden clouds in the preceding scene. It forms part of the broader cosmic tableau that envelops the themes and issues of the surah. This imagery bears witness to the power of the One, the Almighty, and the fact that these valleys flow according to their measure, each in accordance with its capacity and its need, testifies to the wisdom of the Creator's design and his precise determination of all things. This is one of the central themes the surah addresses. Yet this imagery is but a framework for the parable that God wishes to set forth for humanity, a parable drawn from the observable realities of their lives, which they pass by daily without reflection. Verily, water descends from the sky, filling the valleys and coursing through them, carrying along with it foam and scum that float upon its surface, sometimes concealing the water beneath. This froth is swelling, inflated, and puffed up, yet it is but scum, transient and without substance. Beneath it the water flows calmly, steadily, bringing life and goodness. Likewise, when metals are melted to be crafted into ornaments like gold and silver, or into useful tools for life such as iron and lead, impure dross rises to the surface, momentarily veiling the pure metal beneath. But this dross too is destined to disappear, leaving behind the pure and enduring metal. Such then is the nature of truth and falsehood in this life. Falsehood rises, floats and swells, appearing dominant and lofty, but it is no more than froth or dross, fleeting and ephemeral, soon to be discarded as waste. Truth, on the other hand, remains steady and serene, often thought by some to have vanished or been overshadowed, yet it endures, like the life-giving water and the pure metal benefiting humanity. Thus does God set forth parables, and thus does he determine the destinies of beliefs, actions and utterances, and of truth and falsehood. For he alone is the One, the Almighty, the sovereign disposer of all affairs, who knows the unseen and the seen, who alone discerns between the enduring and the perishable. And so, those who respond to God's call shall have the ultimate reward of goodness, while those who do not respond to him shall face such terror that they would wish to ransom themselves with all that the earth contains, and more besides. But no ransom will avail them. It is but a reckoning of grievous consequence. For their abode shall be hell, a woeful resting place indeed. For those who respond to their sustainer, theirs shall be the ultimate reward of goodness. But those who do not respond to him, even if they possessed all that is in the earth and twice as much, they would offer it as ransom. Yet theirs shall be an evil reckoning, and their abode shall be hell, and wretched indeed is such a resting place. Thus are the paths of those who respond contrasted with those who turn away, as goodness is juxtaposed with severe torment, and as the bliss of paradise stands opposed to the wretchedness of hell, in the manner consistent with the overarching themes and unfolding rhythms of this surah. Can then one who knows that what has been revealed to you from your sustainer is the truth be likened to one who is blind? Only those endowed with understanding take heed. 13:19. Those who are true to their bond with God and do not break their covenant. 13:20. and those who join what God has commanded to be joined, and stand in awe of their sustainer, and fear the evil of the reckoning. 13:21. And those who patiently persevere, seeking their sustainer's countenance and establish prayer, and spend of what we have provided for them secretly and openly, and repel evil with good, these it is who shall have the ultimate abode. 13:22. Gardens of perpetual bliss, into which they shall enter along with those who were righteous from among their parents, their spouses, and their offspring. And the angels shall come unto them from every gate. 13:23. Peace be upon you, for you have patiently persevered. How excellent is the ultimate abode. 13:24. But as for those who break their bond with God after it has been established, and sever what God has commanded to be joined, and spread corruption on earth, upon them shall be the curse, and theirs shall be the most evil abode. 13:25. God grants abundant sustenance to whom he wills, and withholds it as he wills. And yet they rejoice in the life of this world, although the life of this world, as compared to the hereafter, is but fleeting enjoyment. 13:26. And the disbelievers say, Why has no sign been sent down to him from his sustainer? Say, Verily God lets go astray whom he wills, and guides unto himself all who turn to him. 13:27. Those who have attained faith and whose hearts find peace in the remembrance of God. Behold, it is in the remembrance of God that hearts find peace. 13:28. Those who have attained faith and do righteous deeds, blissful is their state, and a beautiful return awaits them. 13:29. Thus have we sent you as a messenger to a community, even as other communities have passed before it, so that you may recite unto them what we have revealed to you. Yet they deny the most gracious. Say, He is my sustainer, there is no deity save him. In him do I place my trust, and unto him is my return. 13:30. And if there were a Qur'an by which mountains could be moved, or the earth could be cleft asunder, or the dead made to speak, but all things rest with God alone. Have not those who have attained faith realized that had God so willed, he could have guided all mankind? Yet never will those who deny the truth cease to be afflicted by calamities or visited by them near their homes until God's promise is fulfilled. Verily, God never fails to fulfill his promise. 13:31. And indeed messengers before you were derided, but I granted respite to those who denied the truth, and then I seized them. And how dreadful was my retribution. 13:32. Is then he who watches over every soul and knows all that it does to be likened to those who ascribe partners to God? Say, name them, or do you presume to inform him of something on earth of which he does not know, or do you merely utter words without meaning? Nay, their scheming has been made alluring to those who deny the truth, and they have been barred from the path. And whomever God lets go astray, no one can guide him. 13:33. Theirs shall be suffering in this world's life, and harder still shall be the suffering of the hereafter. And they shall have none to shield them from God. 13:34. The parable of the garden promised to the God conscious. Beneath it run rivers, its sustenance is eternal, and so is its shade. Such is the ultimate reward of the God conscious, whereas the ultimate end of the deniers is the fire. 13:35. Those to whom we have granted the scripture rejoice in what has been revealed to you, although among the factions are some who deny parts of it. Say, I have been commanded to worship God alone and not to ascribe divinity to anyone beside him. Unto him do I call, and unto him is my return. 13:36. Thus have we revealed it as a judgment in the Arabic tongue. And if you were to follow their desires after the knowledge that has come to you, you would have neither protector nor shield against God. 13:37. And indeed, we sent messengers before you, and we gave them spouses and offspring. But it was not given to any messenger to bring a sign except by God's leave. For every term there is a decree. 13:38. God effaces what he wills and confirms what he wills, for with him is the source of all decrees. 13:39. And whether we show you part of what we promise them or cause you to pass away, your duty is only to convey the message, while it is for us to call them to account. 1340. Do they not see how we gradually reduce the land from its outlying borders, and God alone rules, and none can reverse his judgment, and he is swift in reckoning, 1341. And indeed those before them devise schemes, but the ultimate scheming belongs to God. He knows what every soul earns, and soon the deniers will know who will attain the ultimate abode, 1342. And those who deny the truth say, You are not a messenger. Say, Sufficient is God as a witness between me and you, and those who have knowledge of the book. 1343. After the magnificent scenes of the cosmos, the depths of the unseen, and the recesses of the soul presented in the first half of this surah, the second half takes the listener through delicate and profound reflections on the issues of revelation and prophethood, of monotheism and false deities, and of the demand for signs and the hastening of divine judgment. This is a fresh traversal of these themes. It begins with a reflection on the essence of faith and disbelief, the former being insight and the latter blindness. It contemplates the nature of believers and disbelievers, highlighting their contrasting qualities. It presents a scene from the hereafter, portraying the bliss of the former and the doom of the latter. It touches upon the granting and withholding of sustenance, both attributed to God alone. It journeys through the hearts of those who find tranquility in the remembrance of God. It extols the Qur'an, which holds the power to move mountains, cleave the earth, and animate the dead. It reflects on the calamities that befall the deniers, mocks their fabricated deities, and recalls the fate of past generations. It concludes with a warning to those who reject the prophet, leaving them to their inevitable destiny. From this, we perceive that the rhythms and striking imagery of the first half of the surah prepare the heart to confront the themes of the second half, which it receives with readiness and openness. The two halves are thus complementary, each impressing its message upon the listener in a harmonious and unified manner. The first issue addressed in this passage is the matter of revelation. It was raised at the beginning of the surah and is now revisited, but in a new and profound manner. Can, then, one who knows that what has been revealed to you from your sustainer is the truth be likened to one who is blind? Indeed, only those endowed with understanding take heed. The counterpart to one who knows that what has been revealed to you from your sustainer is the truth is not merely one who does not know this truth, but rather one who is blind to it. This is a remarkable and profound way to touch hearts and illustrate the gulf between the two states. It is at the same time the very essence of truth, free from embellishment or exaggeration, as blindness alone is what leads to jahiliyyah of this grand and manifest reality. A reality so clear that none fail to see it except those blinded by their inner darkness. Thus, humanity, when faced with this great truth, divides into two groups: those with sight, who perceive and understand, and those who are blind, who fail to grasp it. This blindness is not of the eyes, but of the heart, a blindness of insight, where perception is extinguished, understanding is veiled, and the light of knowledge is snuffed out within the soul, severing it from its source of illumination. It is only those endowed with understanding who take heed. They are those who possess minds and hearts capable of comprehension. They are reminded by the truth and thus remember it. They are awakened to its signs and thus reflect. The attributes of such people, these possessors of understanding, are then described: those who are true to their bond with God and do not break their covenant. The bond with God is an all-encompassing covenant, embracing all other bonds. The greatest of these is the covenant of faith, while the most comprehensive is the pledge to fulfill the demands of that faith. This covenant of faith is both ancient and renewed. Ancient, for it is woven into the fabric of human nature, linked to the eternal laws of existence. It is a covenant imprinted upon the human soul, which perceives, through its very being, the unity of the will behind creation, the oneness of the Creator, and the truth that He alone is to be worshipped. This is the covenant affirmed by humankind in the primordial realm, as conveyed in what has been interpreted regarding the covenant made with the descendants of Adam. And it is renewed with the messengers whom God has sent, not to establish the bond anew, but to renew it, remind humanity of it, clarify its implications and demonstrate its demands: submission to God alone, renunciation of submission to any other righteous deeds, upright conduct and devotion directed solely to God, the sustainer of the primordial covenant. From this divine covenant and sacred bond flow all other covenants and obligations toward one another, whether with the messenger, with relatives, or with people at large, be they strangers or kin, individuals or communities. For the one who honours the first covenant will naturally honour all others, since fidelity to these is a duty. Similarly, the one who fulfills the obligations of the first bond will fulfill all responsibilities toward others, for these too are encompassed within the demands of the divine covenant. This, then, is the solid foundation upon which the entire structure of human life is built. It is articulated here in a few concise words, and those who join that which God has commanded to be joined, and stand in awe of their sustainer, and fear the evil of the reckoning. In this broad and comprehensive statement, it is implied that they join all that God has commanded to be joined. This reflects complete obedience, unwavering uprightness, and adherence to divine laws without deviation or distortion. The statement is left general without specifying individual commands, for the purpose here is not to enumerate them but to portray absolute rectitude, unyielding obedience, and an unbroken connection to all that is good and right. The verse also hints at the inner state accompanying this obedience, and they stand in awe of their sustainer and fear the evil of the reckoning. It is a deep reverence for God, coupled with a fear of that grievous punishment that may befall them on the day of his judgment. These are the possessors of understanding who contemplate their reckoning before the day of reckoning itself, and they patiently persevere, seeking their sustainers' countenance. Patience encompasses many facets, and its requirements are numerous. Patience in fulfilling the obligations of the covenant, such as deeds, striving, calling others to the truth, and exerting effort. Patience in the face of blessings and hardships alike, for few are those who remain steadfast amidst blessings without succumbing to arrogance or ingratitude. Patience in enduring the foolishness and jahiliyyah of people, which often causes hearts to constrict. And patience, patience, and more patience, all for the sole purpose of seeking the countenance of their sustainer. This patience is not born out of fear of criticism or for the sake of worldly honour, nor is it motivated by expectation of reward or avoidance of harm. Rather, it is patience rooted in submission to God's will, contentment with his decree, and acceptance of his wisdom, seeking nothing but his pleasure. And they establish prayer. Prayer is included in the fulfillment of God's covenant, yet it is highlighted here because it is the foremost pillar of this covenant. It is the ultimate expression of exclusive devotion to God, a direct and intimate connection between the servant and the sustainer, and an act of worship that contains no movement or word for anyone other than him. And they spend out of what we have provided them, secretly and openly. This too is included in maintaining the ties that God has commanded to be joined and fulfilling the obligations of the covenant. Yet it is emphasized here because it represents the bond among God's servants in the realm of human relationships. It purifies the giver from selfishness, the recipient from resentment, and fosters mutual cooperation and dignity within the Muslim community. Spending secretly is appropriate when preserving dignity and modesty. Spending openly applies when setting an example, enforcing divine law, or ensuring social justice. Each has its place in life, and they repel evil with good. This refers to their daily interactions where they respond to wrongdoing with acts of kindness, not in matters of faith, but in personal dealings. Such behavior softens hearts, extinguishes enmity, and redirects people toward goodness. By countering evil with good, they quench the flames of hostility, neutralize Satan's whispers, and ultimately repel evil itself. The verse begins with the result, the repelling of evil, to encourage this noble behavior and highlight its ultimate outcome. However, this behavior is not intended for situations where it might embolden the aggressor or encourage further wrongdoing. When evil must be confronted with firmness, the Qur'an advises decisive action. It is they who shall have the ultimate abode, gardens of perpetual bliss, which they shall enter along with the righteous from among their parents, spouses, and offspring. And the angels shall enter upon them from every gate, saying, Peace be upon you for all that you have patiently endured. How excellent is this ultimate abode! These noble souls shall reside in the highest stations of paradise, eternal gardens where they will abide forever. There they shall be reunited with the righteous among their loved ones, whose own merit grants them entry, and they will enjoy the added blessing of this joyful reunion. Amidst this gathering of loved ones, angels will come forth in waves, entering from every gate, proclaiming, Peace be upon you for all that you have patiently endured. How excellent is this ultimate abode! It is a magnificent celebration, a festival of reunion, peace and honour. On the opposite shore, however, are those who lack insight and understanding. They stand in stark contrast to the people of understanding in every way. But those who break their bond with God after it has been established, sever what God has commanded to be joined and spread corruption on earth. It is they upon whom the curse shall rest, and theirs shall be the most evil abode. They betray their covenant with God, which is embedded in human nature and the eternal laws of existence. In breaking this primal bond, they undermine all others, for whoever does not honour their bond with God will honour no other covenant or tie. They sever what God has commanded to be joined, and instead of building, they spread corruption across the earth. Thus, they stand in opposition to the people of faith who uphold their covenant, unite what God has commanded to be joined, and repel evil with good. Where the people of faith bring harmony, these others sow discord. Where the people of faith endure with patience, these others corrupt and destroy. Those are the ones who are cast far away, banished, upon whom there is a curse and expulsion as the opposite of honour and elevation. Theirs is the abode of misery, so wretched that it needs no further mention, for it is already known through its contrast with the bliss of that other abode. These are the ones who exulted in the fleeting pleasures of worldly life and its perishable delights, heedless of the eternal bliss of the hereafter. And yet it is God who apportions sustenance, expanding or constricting it as he wills. The command over both this world and the hereafter belongs to him alone. If they had sought the hereafter, God would not have deprived them of the lawful enjoyment of this world, for he is the one who granted it to them in the first place. God grants abundant sustenance to whomever he wills, and restricts it for whomever he wills. And yet they rejoiced in the life of this world, despite knowing that the life of this world is but a fleeting enjoyment in comparison to the hereafter. A profound distinction has already been drawn between those who recognize that what has been revealed to the messenger from his sustainer is the truth, and those who are blind. Now, the discourse turns to describe these blind ones, those who fail to perceive the signs of God in the universe, for whom even this mighty Qur'an is not sufficient. Instead, they demand a miraculous sign. A similar demand was narrated earlier in the Surah, where it was clarified that the role of the messenger is only to deliver the warning and that the signs belong to God alone. Here again, their demand is recounted, followed by a reminder of the causes of guidance and misguidance, alongside a description of hearts that are tranquil through the remembrance of God, hearts that neither doubt nor demand miracles to believe, for they already hold in their hands the Qur'an, this profound, powerful and life-giving scripture. Indeed, it is so mighty that were it befitting of a scripture to move mountains, cleave the earth, or make the dead speak, this Qur'an would surely have accomplished such feats. And yet, the surah concludes the matter by dissuading the believers from pinning their hopes on such people, instead directing them to reflect on the fate of previous deniers and the punishments that befall the disbelievers around them from time to time. And those who disbelieve say, Why has no sign been sent down upon him from his sustainer? Say, God lets go astray whomever he wills and guides to himself those who turn to him, those who have attained faith and whose hearts find tranquility in the remembrance of God. Truly, in the remembrance of God do hearts find rest. Those who believe and do righteous deeds, for them is joy and a beautiful return. Thus we have sent you as a messenger to a community preceded by other nations, so that you may recite to them what we have revealed to you. But they deny the Merciful One, say, He is my sustainer, there is no deity but He. In Him I place my trust, and to Him is my ultimate return. And if there were a Qur'an by which mountains could be moved, or the earth could be split asunder, or the dead could be made to speak, such would indeed be this Qur'an. But all authority belongs to God alone. Do not then the believers know that if God had so willed, He would have guided all of mankind? Yet those who disbelieve will continue to be struck by calamities because of their deeds, or such calamities will descend near their homes until God's promise is fulfilled. Indeed, God never fails in His promise. And messengers before you were also mocked, but I gave respite to those who disbelieved. Then I seized them, and how terrible was my retribution. The response to their demand for a miraculous sign is rooted in a profound truth. It is not signs that lead people to faith. Faith arises from its inherent causes within the soul, from the heart's predisposition to seek truth and recognize it when it is encountered. Say, God lets go astray whomever He wills and guides to Himself those who turn to Him. Thus God guides those who turn to Him, for it is their turning toward Him that makes them deserving of His guidance. Conversely, it follows that those who do not turn to Him are the ones deserving of misguidance, for their hearts display no readiness to seek the truth or walk its path. As for hearts that remain unmoved, they are left far from God's guidance. The Quran now paints a vivid portrait of the believers' hearts, a scene suffused with serenity, intimacy, joy, and peace. Those who believe and whose hearts find rest in the remembrance of God. Their hearts find rest in the awareness of their closeness to God, in the intimacy of His presence, and in the security of His protection. They are at peace, free from the anxieties of isolation and the uncertainties of the path, for they perceive wisdom in creation, in beginnings and in ends. They are comforted by the certainty of God's protection from harm and evil, except as He wills. And even then they are content with His decree, patient in trials, and steadfast in adversity. They are reassured by His mercy, which manifests in guidance, sustenance, and concealment of faults, both in this world and the next. Truly, in the remembrance of God do hearts find rest. This tranquility that arises from the remembrance of God is a deep reality known only to those whose hearts have been touched by the sweetness of faith. Those whose hearts have connected with God. They experience it, but they cannot convey it in words to others who have not tasted it, for it cannot be transmitted by words. It flows through the heart, bringing with it an inner fragrance, a radiant joy and a soothing balm. It fills the soul with peace and makes one feel that in this vast existence, one is not alone. Everything around is a friend, for everything around is God's creation, and one is under His protection. Truly, there is no greater misery on this earth than being deprived of the tranquility that comes from intimacy with God. No misery is greater than wandering through life severed from all that surrounds one in the universe, for such a person is cut off from the firm bond that ties him to all creation through God, the Creator of all. No misery is greater than living without knowing why one came, where one is going, or why one endures what one endures in life. No misery is greater than walking this earth in dread, fearing everything because one cannot sense the hidden bond that connects him to all existence. No misery is greater than carving a path through life, alone and lost in a desolate wilderness, where one must struggle unaided, without support, without guidance, and without help. There are indeed moments in life that no human being can endure unless they lean upon God and find reassurance in His protection. No matter how strong, steadfast, or self-reliant a person may be, there come moments when the storms of life sweep away all strength, leaving one utterly exposed. Only those who find tranquility in God can withstand such moments. Truly, in the remembrance of God do hearts find rest. Those who turn to God and are tranquil in His remembrance will find their ultimate return to be beautiful, as God rewards them for their turning to Him and for the righteous deeds they performed in this life. Those who believe and do righteous deeds, for them is joy and a beautiful return. The word tuba, derived from taba, meaning to be good, is an emphatic term signifying immense joy and bliss, and it is paired with the promise of a beautiful return to God, to whom they had turned in this life. But as for those who demand a miraculous sign, they remain restless, for they have not experienced the tranquility of faith. They are anxious, constantly seeking wonders and miracles. And yet you are not the first messenger to bring what you have brought, so your mission should not seem strange to them. Many nations have passed before them, and many messengers have been sent. If they disbelieve, then continue on your path and place your trust in God. Thus, we have sent you as a messenger to a community preceded by other nations, so that you may recite to them what we have revealed to you. But they deny the merciful one, say, "He is my sustainer, there is no deity but He. In Him I place my trust, and to Him is my ultimate return." Their rejection of the merciful one is astonishing, for it is He whose mercy brings tranquility to hearts and whose boundless compassion touches all. Your task is only to recite to them what has been revealed to you, for that is why you were sent. If they disbelieve, declare that your reliance is on God alone and that you turn to Him and Him alone. The Qur'an concludes the matter, shifting the focus from their demand for miracles to the profound transformations brought about by this very Qur'an. It has achieved in the hearts and lives of those who embraced it far greater miracles than moving mountains, splitting the earth, or raising the dead. It has transformed nations, altered the course of history, and shaped the destiny of civilizations. It has awakened hearts that were harder than mountains, shattered traditions more solid than the earth, and revived peoples whose souls were more lifeless than the dead. The transformation it wrought in the lives of the Arabs, bringing them from the depths of Jahiliyyah to the heights of moral and spiritual excellence, was far greater than any outward miracle. If there were a Qur'an by which mountains could be moved, or the earth could be split asunder, or the dead could be made to speak, such would indeed be this Qur'an. But all authority belongs to God alone. The discourse concludes with a reminder of God's absolute authority and wisdom, leaving the matter entirely in His hands. Those who remain unmoved by the Qur'an are not to be despaired over, for guidance and misguidance are in God's hands alone. If He had willed, He would have created all of humanity with the same capacity for guidance, like the angels, or compelled them to believe by His decree. But He did not will this, for He created humanity for a unique purpose, one that requires their voluntary striving toward Him. Thus, leave them to God's decree. Even if He has chosen not to annihilate them, as He did with some previous nations, calamities will continue to strike them, afflicting their hearts with fear and anxiety until God's promise is fulfilled. And those who disbelieve will continue to be struck by calamities because of their deeds, or such calamities will descend near their homes until God's promise is fulfilled. Indeed, God never fails in His promise. The examples of past nations serve as a reminder, for their fates hold lessons for those who reflect. The punishment of God is inevitable, and His justice is inescapable. And how terrible was my retribution? The discourse then briefly revisits the issue of associating partners with God, exposing its futility through a series of rhetorical questions. How can they set up partners for God, who alone oversees every soul and repays it for what it has earned? The end of this discourse contrasts the fate of the unbelievers who face torment in both this world and the next, with the eternal bliss prepared for the God-conscious. Is then He who oversees every soul and what it has earned comparable to those whom they associate with Him as partners? And yet they have set up partners for God. Say, name them. Or do you presume to inform Him of something on earth that He does not know? Or is it merely an empty phrase on your lips? Nay, but their scheming has been made alluring to those who disbelieve, and they have been turned away from the path. And whomever God lets go astray, there is no guide for him. For them is punishment in this world, and the punishment of the hereafter is far more severe, and they will have no protector against God's decree. By contrast, the reward of the God-conscious is described in imagery that evokes peace and eternal bliss. The parable of the garden which the God-conscious are promised. Beneath it flow rivers, its food is everlasting, as is its shade. Such is the ultimate reward of those who are conscious of God, whereas the ultimate destiny of the disbelievers is the fire. The Quran concludes this passage with a vivid reminder of God's all-encompassing authority and knowledge. God is the one who watches over every soul, the one who knows and repays each being for what it has earned, whether in secret or in the open. This imagery of God's watchfulness is rendered with a sensory vividness that shakes the heart. Is, then, he who oversees every soul and what it has earned comparable to the partners they set up for him? The Quranic expression brings this watchfulness to life, presenting it as a tangible reality that causes the heart to tremble. Can there be any soul that does not quiver at the thought of being under the constant gaze of God? And yet, despite this, they ascribe partners to him. What utter folly! And they have set up partners for God. These supposed partners, however, are mere non-entities, unable to rival God's knowledge, authority, or power. Let those who associate them with God name them if they dare. But their claims are based on nothing more than shallow words, devoid of meaning or substance. Do you inform him of something he does not know in the earth? What sarcasm! Or is it you humans who claim to know what God does not know? Do you assert that there are gods on earth, while this knowledge has escaped God? It is an audacious claim, one they cannot even dare to imagine, and yet they utter it, if not with their tongues, then with the language of their state. For when God declares that there are no gods, they persist in asserting their existence, contradicting what God has denied. Or is it merely a surface utterance? Do you claim their existence with shallow words, devoid of meaning or substance? Is the matter of divinity so trivial and frivolous that it can be approached with superficial statements and hollow declarations? This sarcasm culminates in a decisive and serious conclusion. Nay, but the scheming of those who disbelieve has been made alluring to them, and they have been turned away from the path, and whomever God leads astray, for him there is no guide. Thus the matter becomes clear. These people have disbelieved, veiling themselves from the signs of faith and shielding their own souls from the evidences of guidance. And so God's law has taken its course upon them. Their hearts have been led astray, and their souls have been deluded into believing that their scheming and plotting against the truth is wise and beautiful. But this very delusion has barred them from the straight path. And whomever God's law decrees to be misguided because he has chosen the path of misguidance, there is no one who can guide him. For God's law is unchanging and does not waver once it is set into motion by human actions. The natural end for such reversed hearts is none other than punishment. For them is a punishment in the life of this world. If a calamity strikes them directly, or even if it looms near their dwellings, their hearts are seized with terror, anxiety, and foreboding. If not, then the aridity of their hearts, bereft of the gladness of faith, is punishment enough. The confusion of their souls, adrift without the serenity of belief, is torment in itself. And their confrontation with every event without comprehending the greater wisdom behind it is agony. And the torment of the hereafter is even more severe. This torment is left here undefined, allowing the imagination to envision it without limitation. And they shall have no protector against God. Nothing will shield them from his grasp, nor from his retribution. They will be left exposed without any defense to whatever God decrees to befall them. On the other hand, in contrast to those forsaken by God, there stand the God-conscious. But those who are conscious of God, in contrast to those who have no protector against God's punishment, the God-fearing have shielded themselves with faith and righteousness. They are secure from torment, and beyond mere security, they are promised a paradise. The parable of the garden which the God-conscious are promised, rivers flow beneath it, its fruits are perpetual, and so is its shade. This is a scene of delight and peace, a vision of perpetual shade and everlasting fruits that calms the soul and brings it respite. It stands in stark contrast to the hardship and torment awaiting the unbelievers. Such is the end of those who are God-conscious, while the end of those who deny the truth is the fire. Thus, the two fates are presented in their natural culmination. This is the end of the God conscious, and that is the fate of the disbelievers. The discourse then proceeds to address the intertwined issues of revelation and the oneness of God, shedding light on the stance of the people of the book towards the Qur'an and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. It reassures the Prophet that what has been revealed to him is the ultimate arbiter of what was brought by the previous scriptures. It is the final reference point containing all that God has willed to preserve of his religion as conveyed by his messengers, while erasing whatever he deemed unnecessary for his wisdom. The prophet is instructed to adhere to what has been revealed to him without yielding to the whims of the people of the book in any matter, be it great or small. As for those who demand a sign from him, they are reminded that signs are granted only by God's will, and the prophet's duty is solely to convey the message. And those to whom we have given the book rejoice at what has been revealed to you, but among the factions are those who deny parts of it. Say, I have been commanded to worship God alone and not to associate anything with him. Unto him I call, and unto him is my return. Thus, those who have been given the book and are true to their faith rejoice in the Qur'an. They recognize in it the confirmation of the fundamental principles of monotheism, as well as a reverence for the scriptures that preceded it. They see in it the acknowledgement of a shared bond that unites all believers in God, and so their hearts are filled with joy, a joy that springs from encountering the truth, reconciling it with what they already hold, and finding their faith reinforced. But among the factions are those who deny parts of it. These factions include both some of the people of the book and the polytheists. The specific parts they deny are not mentioned here, as the focus is on their rejection itself and the response to it. Say, I have been commanded to worship God alone and not to associate anything with him. Unto him I call, and unto him is my return. The prophet is commanded to declare his unwavering adherence to the entirety of the revelation. Whether the people of the book rejoice in it, or some among them deny parts of it, his mission remains unchanged: to worship God alone, to call others to him, and to return to him alone. The prophet is also reminded that what has been revealed to him is the ultimate authority in matters of faith. It is revealed in the clear Arabic tongue, perfectly accessible to his understanding, and it constitutes the final arbiter in matters of belief. And thus have we revealed it as a decisive judgment in Arabic. The prophet is warned against following their whims after the truth has been made clear to him. And if you were to follow their desires after the knowledge that has come to you, you would have no protector or defender against God. What has been revealed to him is certain knowledge, while the claims of the factions are nothing but baseless whims. Even the prophet, peace be upon him, is addressed here, underscoring the gravity of this truth, a truth so absolute that even the slightest deviation from it, even in theory, would have dire consequences. And indeed, we sent messengers before you, and we gave them wives and offspring. But no messenger could bring a sign except by God's permission, for every term is a decree. God erases whatever he wills and establishes whatever he wills, and with him is the mother of the book. Thus, the message is clear. The prophet's task is to convey the truth, neither to seek miraculous signs at will, nor to follow the whims of others. It is God who decrees the signs, and it is he who determines what remains and what is erased. And whether we show you part of what we promised them or take you unto us, your duty is only to convey, and upon us rests the reckoning. The prophet is reassured. His role is to deliver the message, while God will take care of the outcome. In this, the true believers among the people of the book find joy. They recognize the Qur'an as affirming the core tenets of their faith, uniting them with other believers in God. Their joy is the joy of meeting truth with truth, and their hearts are filled with certainty and peace. But as for those who reject parts of it, their denial stems from desires and whims, not from any knowledge or understanding. The prophet is instructed to remain steadfast, adhering to the revelation in its entirety, for it is the ultimate and final truth. And if there is an objection to the humanity of the prophet, Then all the messengers before him were humans as well. Indeed, we sent messengers before you, and we gave them wives and offspring. And if the objection lies in his inability to bring forth a material miracle, let it be known that this is not within his domain, but rather it is God's prerogative. And no messenger could bring forth a sign except by the permission of God, in accordance with his wisdom and at the time he deems fit. And if there is a partial disagreement between what has been revealed to the prophet and what the people of the book adhere to, then it is because every epoch has its own scripture. And this is the final one. For every period is a book. God erases whatever he wills and establishes, and with him is the mother of the book. That which has fulfilled its purpose according to his wisdom is erased, while what is beneficial is preserved. With him is the source of all scripture, the mother of the book, encompassing all that is affirmed and all that is erased. For from it emanates all revelation, and it is he who governs it according to his wisdom. None can challenge his will or object to his decree. Whether God chooses to take them to task during the prophet's lifetime by some of what he has promised them, or whether he takes the prophet unto him before this happens, it changes nothing of the matter, nor does it alter the essence of the message or the nature of divine sovereignty. And whether we show you some of what we promise them, or take you unto us, your duty is only to convey, and upon us is the reckoning. In this decisive directive lies a profound explanation of the nature of the call and the nature of those who call to it. Those who call to God are tasked only with fulfilling the responsibilities of the call at every stage. They are not burdened with bringing about its outcomes, for that is solely within God's will. Neither do they have the right to hasten the steps of this movement, nor to feel disheartened if God's decree seems slow in granting them visible triumph or dominion on earth. They are callers and nothing more than callers. And yet the mighty hand of God is evident in the world around them. It acts upon nations that are wealthy and powerful when they grow haughty, disbelieve and spread corruption, diminishing their strength, wealth and stature. He confines them to narrow confines of the earth after they once wielded vast dominion and influence. And when God decrees their decline, none can overturn his judgment, and his decree must come to pass. Do they not see that we come to the earth, diminishing it at its edges, and God judges, and none can reverse his judgment, and he is swift in reckoning? And they are not more cunning, nor more resourceful, nor more scheming than those who came before them, whom God seized in his grasp. He is the wisest in planning and the most formidable in strategy. And indeed those before them devised their schemes, but to God belongs all planning. He knows what every soul earns, and the disbelievers will soon know who will have the ultimate abode. The surah concludes with the disbelievers' denial of the prophet's message, just as it began by affirming the truth of his prophethood. Thus the opening and closing of the surah align seamlessly with God bearing witness sufficient unto himself, for he possesses absolute knowledge of this book and every other book. And those who disbelieve say, "You are not sent." Say, "Sufficient is God as a witness between me and you, and those who have knowledge of the book." Thus ends the surah, having taken the human heart on a journey through the vastness of the universe and the depths of the soul. It leaves the heart marked by rhythmic, profound and impactful impressions, eventually returning it to the testimony of God, as introduced at the beginning and reaffirmed at the end, an ultimate resolution that silences all argument and concludes all discourse. Within this surah lie landmarks of Islamic belief and the Quranic method of presenting it. These landmarks deserve careful reflection in their respective contexts, but we have chosen to avoid interrupting the Quranic flow of this surah with such pauses, preferring instead to reserve them for the conclusion, where we may contemplate them with greater deliberation. And throughout our review of the surah, we alluded briefly to these landmarks, and now we hope to examine them in greater depth with the help of God. The opening of the surah, the nature of its themes, and many of its directives all point clearly to the fact that this is a Meccan surah, not a Medinan one, as some accounts and copies of the Qur'an suggest. It was revealed at a time when hostility, denial, and defiance from the polytheists had reached their peak. During this period, demands for miraculous signs from the Prophet, peace be upon him, and calls for the hastening of the punishment he warned them of became frequent. This necessitated a powerful campaign aimed at fortifying the Prophet, peace be upon him, and those with him upon the truth that had been revealed to him from his sustainer. It sought to elevate their spirits, strengthen their reliance upon God alone, and proclaim his oneness as the only deity and sustainer. It urged steadfastness upon this truth and belief in its ultimate reality, regardless of the denials of the polytheists. At the same time, it aimed to confront the polytheists with the evidences of this truth, visible in the universe, within their own selves, and in the annals of human history and its events. All of this is presented with a powerful array of influences addressing the human being in a deeply evocative and impactful manner. Here are some examples of the emphatic affirmations that this book is the ultimate truth and that rejection, denial, defiance, a slow response, or the difficulty of the path cannot alter this great reality. These are the verses of the book, and what has been revealed to you from your sustainer is the truth, but most people do not believe. And they hasten you for evil before good, though examples have passed before them. Indeed, your sustainer is full of forgiveness for people despite their wrongdoing, and indeed your sustainer is severe in punishment. And those who disbelieve say, "Why has a sign not been sent down to him from his sustainer? You are only a warner, and for every people is a guide." To him belongs the call to truth, and those whom they call upon besides him do not respond to them in the least, except as one who stretches out his hands to water to reach his mouth, but it does not reach him, and the supplication of the disbelievers is in vain. Thus does God set forth the parable of truth and falsehood. As for the scum, it vanishes like foam, but as for that which benefits people, it remains in the earth. Thus does God set forth parables. Then is the one who knows that what has been revealed to you from your sustainer is the truth, like one who is blind. Only those of understanding will take heed. And those who disbelieve say, "Why has a sign not been sent down to him from his sustainer?" Say, "Indeed, God leads astray whom he wills and guides to himself those who turn to him." Those who have believed and whose hearts find rest in the remembrance of God. Verily, in the remembrance of God do hearts find rest. Thus we have sent you to a nation before whom other nations have passed, so that you may recite to them what we have revealed to you, while they disbelieve in the Most Merciful. Say, "He is my sustainer, there is no deity but him. In him I have placed my trust, and to him is my return." And thus we perceive in this selection of verses the nature of the challenges the polytheists brought against the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Qur'an, and the divine responses to their defiance. These responses, along with the divine directives, reflect the nature of the period in which the surah was revealed, firmly placing it in the Meccan phase of the prophetic mission. Among the most striking glimpses of divine guidance to the messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, is the command to proclaim openly and without hesitation the full truth of the message he has been entrusted with. This was to be done even in the face of rejection, denial, defiance, the slow pace of acceptance, and the arduousness of the path. The essence of this truth is that there is no deity but God, no sustainer but God, no object of worship but God, that God is the one, the irresistible, and that all people will return to him either to paradise or to the fire. These are the fundamental truths that the polytheists rejected and challenged him on, and he was commanded not to follow their whims, not to placate them, nor to seek their approval by concealing any part of this truth or delaying its proclamation. He was warned of what awaited him from God if he were to follow their desires in even the slightest way after knowledge had come to him. This striking directive unveils for those who call others to God the essential nature of the methodology of this mission, a methodology that admits no innovation or deviation. It is incumbent upon them to proclaim the foundational truths of this religion with clarity, without concealing or postponing anything. At the forefront of these truths is the proclamation that there is no divinity or sustainership except for God, and therefore no authority, obedience, submission, or allegiance except to him alone. This fundamental truth must be declared regardless of opposition, defiance or indifference from the deniers, no matter how difficult or dangerous the path may be. It is not wise or appropriate to hide or delay any aspect of this truth, simply because the tyrants of the earth may dislike it, or because they may harm those who proclaim it, or because it may cause them to turn away from this religion or conspire against it and its advocates. None of this justifies concealing or postponing the proclamation of any part of the essential truths of this faith, nor does it justify starting with secondary matters, such as rituals, moral refinement, spiritual discipline, or ethical behavior, while avoiding the wrath of earthly tyrants by delaying the declaration of God's oneness in divinity and sustainership, and thus his exclusive right to obedience, submission, and allegiance. This is the methodology of action within this creed, as God, glorified be He, has willed it. It is the methodology of dawah, as exemplified by our Master Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him, under the guidance of his sustainer. No one who calls to God has the right to deviate from this path or to adopt any other methodology. God, after all, is the protector of his religion and sufficient for those who call to it, shielding them from the harm of tyrants. The Quranic methodology in dawah combines the recitation of God's revealed book, this Qur'an, with the open book of creation. The entire cosmos is presented as a source of inspiration for human existence, filled with signs that bear witness to God's majesty, His power, and His supreme governance. To these two books, the Qur'an and the natural world, is added the record of human history, which also contains eloquent testimonies to God's authority, planning, and wisdom. Thus, the Qur'an confronts human existence with all of these, addressing every dimension of the human being, engaging the senses, the heart, and the mind alike. This surah contains many brilliant examples of how the pages of the cosmic book are presented, immediately following the verses of the Qur'an, to address the entirety of human existence. Here are some of these examples. Alif, Lam, Ra. These are the verses of the book. That which has been revealed to you from your sustainer is the truth, but most people do not believe. It is God who raised the heavens without pillars that you can see, then established himself upon the throne. He subjected the sun and the moon, each running its course for an appointed term. He regulates all affairs, explaining the signs in detail so that you may be certain of meeting your sustainer. And it is he who spread out the earth and placed upon it firm mountains and rivers, and of every kind of fruit he made two mates. He causes the night to cover the day. Indeed, in all this are signs for a people who reflect. And on the earth are neighbouring tracts, and gardens of vines, and fields of crops and date palms, some from a single root and others not. All are irrigated with the same water, yet we make some of them exceed others in taste. Indeed, in all this are signs for a people who reason. Quran 13:1-4. The Quran gathers these cosmic images, transforming the entire universe into a living witness to God's majesty in creation, origination, planning, and governance. It then expresses astonishment at those who see these signs, yet still find the concept of resurrection and a second creation implausible, and who reject revelation because it affirms this profound yet evident truth. And if you are astonished, then astonishing indeed is their saying, "When we are dust, will we indeed be brought into a new creation?" It is they who disbelieve in their sustainer, it is they who will have shackles around their necks, and it is they who will be the inhabitants of the fire, dwelling therein forever. Quran 13:5. It is he who shows you the lightning, inspiring fear and hope, and who forms the heavy clouds. The thunder glorifies him with his praise, as do the angels in awe of him. He sends down thunderbolts, striking whom he wills. The Quran presents this scene from the natural world, marveling at those who dispute God's existence and associate others with him, even as they witness the signs of his sustainership, power, and authority. They see how the universe submits to him, how he governs and manages the affairs of his creation, and how no one other than him has the power to create, manage, or decree. Yet they dispute concerning God, and he is severe in punishment. To him alone belongs the true call, and those they call upon besides him do not respond to them at all. except as one who stretches his hands toward water, calling it to reach his mouth, but it will never reach him. Thus the supplication of the disbelievers is nothing but in vain, and to God prostrates all who are in the heavens and the earth, willingly or unwillingly, as do their shadows in the mornings and the afternoons. Say, who is the sustainer of the heavens and the earth? Say, God. Say, then have you taken besides him allies who possess no power to benefit or harm themselves? Say, is the blind equal to the seeing, or are darkness and light equal? Or have they attributed to God partners who created like his creation, so that the creation seemed alike to them? Say, God is the creator of all things, and he is the one, the irresistible. Qur'an 13:16. Thus, the universe becomes a radiant exhibition of signs of God's power and calls to faith. It addresses the human soul with a profound and all-encompassing logic, appealing to the heart and mind in perfect harmony. To the pages of the cosmic book, the Qur'an adds the pages of human history. It presents the evidence of divine power, authority, sovereignty, precision, and governance as they manifest in the life of humanity. They ask you to hasten the evil before the good, though there have already occurred before them exemplary punishments. Indeed, your sustainer knows what every female carries, and what the wombs lose or exceed. Everything with him is by measure. He is the knower of the unseen and the witnessed, the grand, the exalted. It is the same whether one conceals their speech or declares it, and whether one hides under cover of night or walks openly by day. For each person there are successive angels before him and behind him, protecting him by the decree of God. Indeed, God does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. And when God wills harm for a people, there is no repelling it, and they have no protector besides him. Qur'an 13:18-20. God expands provision for whom he wills and restricts it for whom he wills. Yet they rejoice in the life of this world, while the life of this world is nothing compared to the hereafter, but a fleeting enjoyment. And those who deny the truth shall not cease to be struck by a calamity for what their hands have wrought, or for such a scourge to draw near to their dwellings, until God's promise comes to pass. Verily, God never fails to fulfill his promise. And indeed, messengers before you were mocked, but I granted respite to those who denied the truth. Then I seized them, and how severe was my retribution. Do they not see how we steadily reduce the earth from its borders? And God alone judges, with none to overturn his decree. Swift indeed is his reckoning, and those before them schemed, but unto God belongs all scheming. He knows what every soul earns, and soon those who deny the truth will know to whom belongs the ultimate destiny. The Quranic methodology weaves these cosmic and historical signs into a seamless tapestry of divine guidance. It transforms them into powerful, evocative symbols that speak to the entirety of human existence, addressing the heart, mind, and soul in a wondrous balance and unity. And from this array of insights, we stand before one of the guiding principles of this method in calling to God with clear insight. It is a call that addresses the entirety of the human being, speaking not to one aspect of their perceptive faculties alone, not merely to the intellect and mind, nor solely to intuition and inner vision, nor exclusively to the senses and emotions. And this Qur'an, it must remain the foundational book of this call, the primary reliance of those who invite others to God before turning to any other source. From it, the callers to God must learn how to summon humanity, how to awaken hearts that slumber, and how to revive spirits that have grown lifeless. For the one who revealed this Qur'an is none other than God, the creator of humanity, fully aware of the nature of their being, intimately acquainted with the pathways of their souls and the twists and turns of their inner selves. As such, those who call to God must follow his method, beginning with the affirmation of God's divinity. Glorified is he, his sustainership, sovereignty, and ultimate authority. Likewise, they must tread the path of this Qur'an in introducing people to their true sustainer in such a manner that their hearts naturally incline toward worshipping him alone and acknowledging his unique sustainership and sovereignty. In introducing humanity to their true God and dispelling all forms of associating others with him, the Quranic method takes great care in clarifying the nature of the message and the nature of the messenger. This is because many deviations in theological understanding, especially among the people of the book, have arisen from confusion between the nature of divinity and the nature of prophethood. This is particularly evident in Christian theology, where divine and sustainable attributes have been ascribed to Jesus, peace be upon him, leading to doctrinal disputes and sectarian schisms among various denominations due to this confusion, which runs contrary to the truth. It was not merely the doctrines of Christianity that became entangled in this maze of confusion. Many forms of paganism also wandered aimlessly in this wilderness, imagining for prophethood qualities that were mysterious and incomprehensible. Some of these conceptions linked prophethood with magic, others with clairvoyance and supernatural predictions, and still others with spirits and unseen forces. Much of this confusion also plagued the pagan Arab mind. For this reason, some among them demanded that the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, foretell the unseen. Others suggested specific material miracles for him to perform. They accused him of being a sorcerer or possessed, implying a connection to jinn. Some demanded that an angel accompany him, among other challenges, suggestions and accusations deeply rooted in their pagan conceptions concerning the nature of the prophet and prophethood. Thus, the Qur'an came to clarify the complete truth about the nature of prophethood and the nature of the prophet, about the essence of the message and the essence of the messenger, about the reality of divinity embodied in God alone, glorified is He, and about the reality of servitude, which encompasses all of God's creation, including His prophets and messengers. They are righteous servants, nothing more. They are not a separate creation apart from humanity. They possess no divine attributes and have no connection to the realms of jinn or the enchanted unseen. Their sole distinction lies in receiving revelation from God. Glorified is He, and beyond this they possess no extraordinary power or control over miracles, except by God's permission when He wills. They remain human beings among humans, chosen for their mission, yet retaining their humanity and servitude to God. Glorified is He, just like the rest of creation. In this surah, we find examples that clarify the nature of prophethood and the message, delineating the boundaries of the prophet and the messenger. They aim to free minds and thoughts from the residue of paganism and to liberate them from the myths that corrupted the beliefs of the people of the book, steering them back toward pagan illusions and legends. These clarifications responded to the tangible challenges posed by the polytheists. They were not abstract intellectual debates or philosophical metaphysics. Rather, they were an active movement confronting real-life challenges and engaging in a practical struggle. And the disbelievers say, "Why has no miraculous sign been sent down to him from his sustainer? You are but a warner, and for every people there is a guide." And the disbelievers say, "Why has no miraculous sign been sent down to him from his sustainer?" Say, "Indeed, God leads astray whom He wills and guides to Himself whoever turns to Him in repentance. Thus we have sent you to a nation before whom other nations have passed away, so that you may recite to them what we have revealed to you. Yet they deny the most merciful. Say, He is my sustainer. There is no deity except Him. In Him I place my trust, and to Him is my return. And indeed we sent messengers before you, and we gave them wives and offspring. And it was not for any messenger to bring a sign except by God's permission. For every term there is a decree. Whether we show you some of what we have promised them or we cause you to die, your duty is only to convey the message, and the reckoning is upon us." Thus the nature of the message and the limitations of the messenger are made clear. He is but a warner. His duty is only to convey the message and to recite what has been revealed to him. He has no power to produce miracles except by God's permission. Moreover, he is a servant of God. God is his sustainer, and to him is his return and ultimate end. He is a human being among humans. He marries, has children, and fulfills all the demands of his humanity. At the same time, he fulfills his servitude to God entirely, in all its dimensions. With this complete clarity, the Islamic creed extricates itself from the fog of myths and the darkness of misguided conceptions regarding the nature of prophethood and the prophet. It liberates itself from the bewildering notions that filled the creeds of the Church as well as various pagan beliefs. These misconceptions transformed Christianity by the end of its first century into a fundamentally pagan creed, despite its origins as a heavenly message brought by Jesus, peace be upon him, that declared him a servant of God, performing no miracle except by God's permission. Before leaving this point, we must reflect upon the profound statement of God. Whether we show you some of what we have promised them, or we cause you to die, your duty is only to convey the message, and the reckoning is upon us. This statement is directed to the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, the messenger who has been entrusted with addressing humanity with this faith. Its essence is as follows. The matter of this religion is not in your hands. The destiny of this call is not your responsibility. Your role is solely to convey the message. Hidayah, guidance, belongs to God alone. Whether God fulfills some of his promises regarding your people during your lifetime, or whether you depart this world before witnessing it, neither outcome changes the nature of your mission. Your task is to deliver the message, while the reckoning rests with God alone. There is no greater clarification of the nature of the caller's role and mission. It is a role that is defined and delimited, leaving the entirety of the matter, this call and everything else, in the hands of God. From this, those who call to God learn to conduct themselves with humility before God. They learn that it is not their place to hasten the results or outcomes, nor to hasten the guidance of people, nor to demand the fulfillment of God's promises of reward or punishment for the believers and deniers in their lifetimes. They must not say, "We have called for so long, yet only a few have responded," or "We have endured much, yet the oppressors have not been seized for their wrongs while we are alive." Their task is but to convey. The reckoning of people in this world or the next is not their concern. It is solely God's domain. Thus, out of reverence for God and acknowledgement of their servitude to him, they must leave the matter entirely to him. Glorified and exalted is he, to do with it as he wills and choose as he pleases. This surah was revealed in Makkah, and for this reason it emphasizes the prophet's role as a conveyor of the message. At this stage, jihad had not yet been ordained. Later, once jihad was enjoined, it came alongside the duty of conveying the message. This distinction reflects the dynamic nature of this religion. Its texts are active, responsive to the movement of the call and its real-life circumstances, and serving as guidance for its progression. Many fail to grasp this dynamic nature when they engage with the religion merely as a static text, without engaging in its active application. They read verses like, "Your duty is only to convey the message, and the reckoning is upon us," and conclude that the task of the callers to God ends with simply conveying the message. Once they have delivered the message, they believe they have fulfilled their obligation, disregarding the role of jihad. Others read such verses without dismissing jihad, but they restrict its application, failing to understand that this verse was revealed in Makkah before jihad was ordained. They fail to perceive the interconnection between Quranic texts and the active movement of the Islamic call. This failure stems from their approach to the religion as mere text, rather than as a living, dynamic reality. They sit passively, reading it on paper, detached from the struggle of implementing it. But this religion cannot be understood by those who remain seated, for it is not a religion for the idle. And from this multitude of concepts, we pause at one of the defining features of this methodology in calling to God upon clear insight, a call that addresses the entirety of human existence, not merely a fragment of its perceiving faculties. It does not appeal exclusively to the intellect and reason, nor solely to intuition and insight, nor merely to the senses and emotions. Rather, it is a comprehensive address to the whole of human nature, engaging all its dimensions in harmony and balance. This Qur'an must remain the foundational book of this call, the primary source upon which those who invite others to God rely before turning to any other reference. Furthermore, they must learn from it how to call people, how to awaken hearts that slumber, and how to revive spirits that have grown stagnant. For it is God, the creator of this human being, fully aware of the intricacies of their nature and the hidden pathways of their soul, who revealed this Qur'an. Just as those who call to God must begin by establishing the divine sustainership, sovereignty and authority of God, exalted be He, they must also follow the path of the Qur'an in leading hearts to know their true sustainer in this manner. Only then will these hearts submit to God alone, acknowledging His unique sustainership and sovereignty. In guiding people to recognize their true sustainer and in eliminating any suspicion of associating others with Him, the Quranic method gives due attention to clarifying the nature of the message and the nature of the messenger. This is because many deviations in theological understanding arose among the people of the book due to confusion between the nature of divinity and the nature of prophethood, especially in Christian doctrines, where divine attributes were ascribed to Jesus, peace be upon him, blurring the lines between sustainership and prophethood. This confusion led followers of various churches into a labyrinth of theological disputes and sectarian conflicts, all stemming from this distortion of truth. Such misconceptions were not limited to Christian doctrines alone. Many forms of paganism also fell into this abyss, imagining prophethood as something shrouded in mystery. Some linked prophethood to sorcery, others to mystical predictions and revelations, and still others connected it to spirits and the unseen realms of the jinn. Many of these notions also influenced Arab paganism. For this reason, some asked the prophet, peace be upon him, to foretell the unseen, while others demanded specific material miracles. They accused him of being a sorcerer or a madman, implying that he was in contact with the jinn. Some even requested that an angel accompany him, among other proposals, challenges and accusations deeply rooted in their pagan perceptions of the nature of prophethood and the prophet. It was in this context that the Qur'an came to dispel all misconceptions and to reveal the complete truth about the nature of prophethood and the prophet, the essence of the message and the messenger, the reality of divinity embodied in God alone, glorified be He, and the reality of servitude that encompasses all of God's creation, including His prophets and messengers. They are righteous servants, not beings of a different kind apart from humanity. They possess none of the attributes of divinity, nor are they connected to the realms of spirits and sorcery. What they possess is revelation from God. Exalted be He. And beyond this they hold no ability to perform miracles except by God's permission when He wills. They are human beings like any other human beings chosen by God, yet their humanity and servitude to God remain intact, like the rest of creation. In this surah, there are examples that clarify the nature of prophethood and the message, the limits of the prophet and the messenger, and the liberation of minds and thoughts from the residues of paganism. It frees them from the myths that corrupted the beliefs of the people of the book before, returning them to the paganism of their fancies and superstitions. This clarification was not merely a theoretical discourse or a metaphysical argument. It was not abstract speculation. Rather, it was a movement engaging with the reality of the time and struggling against it in tangible, practical ways. And those who disbelieve say, "Why has no sign been sent down to him from his sustainer? You are only a warner, and for every people there is a guide." And those who disbelieve say, "Why has no sign been sent down to him from his sustainer?" Say, "Verily God leads astray whomever He wills, and guides unto Himself those who turn to Him." Thus we have sent you to a nation before whom other nations have passed away, that you may recite to them what we have revealed to you. Yet they deny the Most Merciful, say, "He is my sustainer, there is no deity but He. In Him I have placed my trust, and to Him is my return." And indeed we sent messengers before you, and we made for them wives and offspring, and it was not for any messenger to bring a sign except by God's permission. For every term there is a decree. And whether we show you part of what we have promised them, or we cause you to die, your duty is only to convey the message, and it is for us to call them to account. Thus the nature of the message and the limits of the messenger become clear. He is but a warner, tasked only with conveying the message that has been revealed to him. He is not to bring forth miracles except by God's permission. He remains a servant of God, his sustainer, to whom he returns and upon whom he relies. He is a human being like other humans who marries and has children, living his humanity in full, with all its requirements, while fulfilling his servitude to God completely, with all its obligations. And with this absolute clarity in the Islamic creed, all the fancies and myths that float in the realms of darkness surrounding the nature of prophethood and the prophet are laid to rest. The creed is purified from the perplexing notions that have plagued the doctrines of the churches and various pagan beliefs. Such notions have distorted Christianity since its very first century, transforming it into one of the pagan creeds in its nature and essence, after it had been, during the time of Christ, peace be upon him, a heavenly message that proclaimed Christ as a servant of God who brought no sign except by God's permission. Before concluding this reflection, we must pause at the remarkable statement in God's words. And whether we show you part of what we have promised them, or we cause you to die, your duty is only to convey the message, and it is for us to call them to account. This statement is addressed to the prophet, peace be upon him, the messenger who was entrusted with God's revelation and tasked with addressing people with this creed. Its essence is a simple truth. The matter of this religion does not rest in the hands of the prophet, nor is the outcome of this call within his control. His duty is solely to convey the message, while guidance and judgment belong to God alone. Whether God fulfills part of his promise to the prophet regarding the fate of his people in his lifetime, or whether the prophet's term ends before that promise is fulfilled, neither scenario changes the nature of his mission, to convey the message. Their reckoning is with God alone. Such clarity strips away any illusions about the role of the caller to God and defines his mission. His duty is clear and limited, while the entire matter of this call and all other affairs rest with God. From this, those who invite others to God learn how to maintain the proper etiquette toward God. It is not for them to hasten results or outcomes, nor to rush the guidance of people, nor to demand God's promise of reward for the believers and punishment for the disbelievers to be fulfilled in their lifetime. They have no right to say, "We have called for so long, yet only a few have responded," or "We have been patient for so long, yet God has not seized the wrongdoers while we are alive." Their role is only to convey the message. The reckoning of people in this world or the hereafter is not their concern. It is solely the domain of God. Therefore, out of reverence for God and acknowledgement of their servitude to him, they must leave the matter entirely to him, exalted be he, to do as he wills and as he chooses. The surah is makan, and for this reason it defines the function of the messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, as nothing but to convey the message. At that time, jihad had not yet been ordained. It was only after conveyance that the command for jihad was given. This is a point that must be noted when considering the dynamic nature of this religion. The Quranic texts are active texts, aligned with the movement of the call to faith and its realities, while simultaneously guiding and shaping that movement. This is what many of those who study this religion in our times fail to grasp. They engage in study but not in action, and thus they fail to comprehend the contexts of Quranic texts and their connection to the dynamic reality of this religion. Many, for instance, read the verse, "Your duty is only to convey the message. It is for us to call them to account." From this they deduce that the mission of those who call to God ends with the act of conveying the message. Once they have delivered their call, they believe they have fulfilled their duty. But what of jihad? By God, I cannot understand where they place it in their conception of this religion. Moreover, there are others who read this same verse and do not negate jihad outright but restrict it, failing to realize that this verse is makan, revealed before the obligation of jihad. They do not perceive the connection between Quranic texts and the dynamic movement of the Islamic call. This is because they themselves do not engage in the active propagation of this religion. They study it on paper while remaining stationary. But this religion cannot be truly understood by those who remain still. It is not a religion for the sedentary. Nevertheless, conveyance remains the foundation of the Prophet's mission and the foundation of the work of those who call others to this religion after him. Conveyance is the first stage of jihad. If this conveyance is carried out correctly, focusing on the core truths of this religion before addressing secondary matters, establishing the oneness of God's divinity, sustainership, and sovereignty from the very first step, calling people to worship God alone, to submit to Him, and to reject submission to anyone or anything else, then it is inevitable that Jahiliyyah, the state of Jahiliyyah, will confront the callers to God with rejection and resistance. This will escalate into hostility, persecution, and opposition. Thus, the stage of jihad inevitably follows correct conveyance as a natural consequence. Thus, we have assigned to every prophet an enemy from among the criminals, but sufficient is your sustainer as a guide and a helper. This is the way forward, and there is no other path. We then pause at another significant feature of the surah, where it lays down the decisive principle regarding the connection between human inclination and action and the ultimate determination of their fate and destiny. It establishes that God's will concerning human beings is realized through their own movement and effort. At the same time, it affirms that every event occurs through God's specific decree. The verses on this subject in the surah are sufficient to illuminate the Islamic perspective on this profound issue, and the following examples convey this clearly. Indeed, God does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. And when God wills harm for a people, there is no turning it back, nor will they find besides Him any protector. For those who respond to their sustainer is the best reward. But those who do not respond to Him, if they had all that is on earth, and even twice as much, they would offer it as ransom. For such people, there will be an awful reckoning, and their abode will be hell. What a wretched resting place. Say, indeed, God leads astray whom He wills, and guides to Himself those who turn to Him, those who have believed and whose hearts find comfort in the remembrance of God. Surely, in the remembrance of God do hearts find comfort. Has it not become clear to those who believe that had God willed, He could have guided all of mankind? But the scheming of the disbelievers was made appealing to them, and they were turned away from the path. And whomever God leads astray, there is none to guide. From the first verse, it is evident that God's will to change the condition of a people is realized through their own movement and effort in transforming their inclinations and actions, both inwardly and outwardly. When a people change what is within themselves, God changes their outward condition in accordance with the nature of their transformation. If their transformation warrants harm, God's will proceeds unchallenged, and no one can shield them from His decree. Conversely, if they respond to their sustainer and change what is within themselves by doing so, God wills goodness for them and brings it to fruition, whether in this world, the hereafter, or both. But if they refuse to respond, God wills harm for them, and they shall face an awful reckoning. No ransom will avail them when they stand before Him on the day of judgment, having failed to respond in this life. The second verse further clarifies that their response, or lack thereof, stems from their own choice and movement, and that God's will concerning them is realized through this movement and inclination. As for the third verse, its opening asserts the boundless freedom of God's will in leading astray whom He wills. However, the continuation of the verse, and guides to Himself those who turn to Him, makes clear that God's guidance is granted to those who turn to Him, while those who do not turn to Him are led astray. He does not misguide one who turns to Him, nor does He guide one who turns away. This is consistent with His promise. As for those who strive for us, we will surely guide them to our ways. Thus, both guidance and misguidance are the outcomes of God's will, which operates through the actions and inclinations of His servants. God's will is realized through their choice to respond or to turn away. The fourth verse affirms that had God willed, He could have guided all of mankind. In the context of the entire set of verses, it becomes clear that this means He could have created all human beings with a single disposition toward guidance, or compelled them to accept it. But He did not will this. Instead, He created them with the capacity for both guidance and misguidance, and he did not compel them toward either, far be it from him. Rather, his will for them is realized through their response or refusal to respond to the signs of guidance and the inspirations of faith. The fifth verse declares that the disbelievers have been deluded by their plotting, and they have been turned away from the path. Taken in isolation, such verses have historically given rise to debates on predestination and free will. However, when considered alongside the broader set of verses, as we have seen, they reveal the comprehensive reality. Their delusion and their being turned away are consequences of their disbelief and their refusal to respond to God. In other words, they altered what was within themselves in a way that necessitated God's will concerning them to manifest through their delusion, their being turned away, and their misguidance. One final clarification is essential to illuminate this oft-debated issue across all religious traditions. A person's inclination and effort alone do not determine their fate. Their outcomes, whether good or ill, are events created only by God's decree. Every occurrence in this universe comes into being through a specific decree of God, fulfilling His will and manifesting His purpose. Indeed, we have created all things in due measure. There is no mechanical determinism in the system of the universe, no cause that produces its effect independently. Both cause and effect are created by God's decree. What a person's inclination achieves is to bring about God's will for them through their choice and effort. However, the realization of that will and its tangible results are brought into existence solely through God's specific decree, and everything with Him is in precise measure. This understanding, as we glean from the context of the surah, magnifies the weight of responsibility placed upon the human being, while at the same time exalting their dignity within the cosmic order. For humanity is the only creation through whom God's will is realized by means of its own movement and choice. What an immense responsibility and what an extraordinary honor! The surah also delivers the decisive word on the meaning of disbelief and the refusal to respond to the truth of this religion, that it signifies a corruption of human nature, the disabling of its innate receptors, and a distortion of its essence. It is inconceivable that a sound, untainted human nature, fully functional and uncorrupted, would encounter this truth, presented with the clarity and power of the Quranic method, and fail to respond with faith and submission. The human fitra, primordial nature, is by design attuned to this truth deep within its core. If it rejects it, then it is only because the individual has chosen to corrupt their own fitra, preferring something other than guidance for themselves. This makes them deserving of misguidance and punishment, as God, exalted is He, says in another surah, "I will turn away from my signs those who are arrogant upon the earth without right, and if they see every sign, they will not believe in it. And if they see the way of righteousness, they will not adopt it as their way. But if they see the way of error, they will adopt it as their way." This is because they have denied our signs and were heedless of them. In this surah, verses such as these recur, shedding light on the nature of disbelief, affirming that it is nothing but blindness and the extinguishing of inner sight. They establish that guidance is the hallmark of a sound human nature, free from this blindness, and an indication of the proper functioning of the faculties of perception within. Indeed, the signs of truth are inscribed upon the pages of this vast universe, speaking to those who reflect and those who use their reason. Can then one who knows that what has been revealed to you from your sustainer is the truth be likened to one who is blind? Truly none can take heed save those endowed with understanding, those who are true to their bond with God and do not break their covenant, those who join what God has commanded to be joined and stand in awe of their sustainer and fear the evil of the reckoning. Those who patiently persevere in seeking their sustainers' countenance, establish prayer, and spend out of what we have provided them, secretly and openly, and who repel evil with good. It is they who shall have the ultimate abode. The disbelievers say, "Why has no miracle been sent down to him from his sustainer?" Say to them, God lets go astray whomever He wills, and guides to Himself all who turn to Him, those who have attained faith and whose hearts find peace in the remembrance of God. Truly, it is in the remembrance of God that hearts find peace. Those who have attained faith and do righteous deeds, joy awaits them and a most beautiful destination. He it is who has spread out the earth and placed firm mountains and rivers upon it and created every kind of fruit in pairs. He causes the night to cover the day. Truly, in this are signs for people who reflect. And upon the earth there are neighbouring tracts, vineyards, fields of grain and date palms, some growing in clusters and others standing alone, all watered with the same water. Yet we cause some to excel others in taste. Truly, in this are signs for people who use their reason. Thus it is established that those who fail to respond to this truth are, by God's testimony, blind. They neither reflect nor reason. As for those who respond to this truth, they are the people of understanding, whose hearts find peace in the remembrance of God, reconnecting with the one they innately recognize and are reconciled with through their primordial nature. Their hearts rest and find tranquility. Indeed, one finds the truth of God's words in everyone one meets who turns away from this truth contained in God's religion and brought in its most complete form by Muhammad, the messenger of God. Such people are but flawed beings, whose inner faculties are obscured and whose essential nature is disabled in its most vital aspects. They fail to perceive the harmonious rhythms of this vast existence around them, which glorifies its sustainer with praise, proclaiming his oneness, power, design, and perfect measure. And if those who do not believe in this truth are blind, as God himself testifies, then it is unthinkable for a Muslim who claims to believe in the messenger of God and in the Qur'an as divine revelation to take instruction on matters of life from one who is blind. Especially when these matters pertain to the system governing human life, the values and standards upon which life is built, or the customs, behaviours and traditions that shape society. This is our stance toward the entirety of non-Islamic intellectual output. Except for purely material sciences and their practical applications, which the Prophet, peace be upon him, referred to when he said, "You are more knowledgeable about your worldly affairs." It is inconceivable for a Muslim who knows God's guidance and the truth brought by the messenger of God to sit in the seat of a student, receiving instruction from anyone who has not responded to this guidance and does not know it to be the truth. Such a person, by God's testimony, is blind. A Muslim cannot reject God's testimony while continuing to claim to be a believer. We must approach this religion with utmost seriousness and take its pronouncements with absolute certainty. Any laxity in this matter amounts to laxity in faith itself, if not an outright rejection of God's testimony. And such rejection is clear unbelief. What is most astonishing is that today there are people who claim to be Muslims, yet they take their understanding of human life from so and so, from those whom God himself has described as blind. And then they persist in claiming that they are Muslims. This religion is a matter of utmost gravity, admitting no frivolity. It is a matter of certainty, allowing no compromise. It is truth in every verse and every word. Whoever does not find within themselves this seriousness, certainty, and confidence has no place in this religion, for God is self-sufficient and free of need from all creation. No Muslim should allow the weight of the ignorant reality around them to press upon their perception to such an extent that they take their understanding of life from this jahiliyyah. They know that what Muhammad, peace be upon him, brought is the truth, and that whoever does not recognize this truth is, by God's testimony, blind. Yet they follow this blind one and learn from him despite God's clear and unequivocal testimony. Finally, we stand before the final landmark of guidance that this surah establishes for this religion. There is an inseparable connection between the corruption that afflicts human life on earth and the blindness to the truth that God has revealed for the guidance of humankind, a truth that leads to righteousness, goodness, and well-being. Those who do not respond to God's primordial covenant and who turn away from the truth sent by him, knowing it to be the only truth, are the very ones who spread corruption on earth. Conversely, those who recognize this truth and respond to it are the ones who bring about righteousness on earth and nurture life itself. Can, then, one who knows that what has been revealed to you from your sustainer is the truth, be likened to one who is blind. Truly, none can take heed save those endowed with understanding, those who are true to their bond with God and do not break their covenant, those who join what God has commanded to be joined and stand in awe of their sustainer and fear the evil of the reckoning, those who patiently persevere in seeking their sustainer's countenance, establish prayer, and spend out of what we have provided them secretly and openly, and who repel evil with good. It is they who shall have the ultimate abode. As for those who break their bond with God after it has been established, who sever what God has commanded to be joined, and who spread corruption on earth, it is they upon whom the curse shall rest, and theirs shall be the most evil abode. Human life cannot be set aright except under the leadership of those who see clearly, those endowed with understanding, who know that what was revealed to Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the truth, and who therefore fulfill their covenant with God. This covenant, rooted in the primordial nature of humankind and in the pledge made by Adam and his descendants, binds them to worship God alone, submit to his will alone, and seek guidance from none but him. Such leaders are those who join what God has commanded to be joined, stand in awe of their sustainer, and fear displeasing him. They remain conscious of the day of reckoning, reckoning it into every thought and action. They patiently persevere in their commitment to God's covenant, bearing the costs of steadfastness. They establish prayer, spend out of what God has provided them, both secretly and openly, and repel corruption and evil with goodness and uprightness. Human life on earth cannot flourish except under such enlightened leadership, which adheres solely to God's guidance and molds the entirety of life according to his will and way. It cannot thrive under blind, misguided leadership, leaders who fail to recognize that what was revealed to Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the singular truth. Blind leaders follow other paths, other systems, and other ideologies, departing from God's path, which he has chosen for the righteous among his servants. Neither feudalism, nor capitalism, nor communism, nor scientific socialism can provide such leadership. For all of these are the products of blind minds, unaware of the truth revealed to Muhammad, peace be upon him. Nor can leadership arise from theocracy, dictatorship, or democracy, for all are alike in that they emanate from those who have arrogated to themselves sustainership over others besides God. They legislate without his permission, enslaving humanity to their own man-made laws and systems. The proof of this, derived from the Quranic text itself, is the overwhelming corruption that engulfs the earth today in this 20th century age of Jahiliyyah. It is the pervasive misery that humanity endures across the globe, whether under feudalistic or capitalistic systems or under communist and socialist regimes. It is the same under dictatorships as under democracies. All produce the same corruption, disintegration, misery and anxiety because they are all the creations of blind minds, oblivious to the truth revealed to Muhammad, peace be upon him, refusing to adhere to God's covenant and law, and failing to align human life with his guidance and way. The Muslim, by virtue of his faith in God and his certainty that what has been revealed to Muhammad is the ultimate truth, rejects every way of life other than the way of God. He rejects every social or economic ideology and every political system save for the one true way, the one true ideology, and the one true law ordained by God and chosen for his righteous servants. To merely acknowledge the legitimacy of any way, system or law devised by anyone other than God is in itself a departure from the fold of submission to God. For submission to God, Islam Lillah, means to unify all acts of devotion, obedience and allegiance exclusively to him without associating any partner with him. Such an acknowledgement, beyond being fundamentally in contradiction with the very essence of Islam, simultaneously hands over the stewardship of this earth to the blind. Those who break the covenant of God after it has been solemnly affirmed, sever what God has commanded to be joined, and spread corruption upon the earth. For indeed this corruption is inextricably tied to the leadership of the blind. Humanity has suffered throughout its history, stumbling from one flawed system to another, from one misguided ideology to the next, and from one man-made law to another, all under the leadership of those blind to the divine truth. These leaders have donned the robes of philosophers, thinkers, lawmakers, and politicians through the ages. Yet never has humanity found true happiness, nor has it ever attained the dignity of its true humanity, nor has it ever fulfilled its role as God's vicegerent on earth, except in the shade of the divine way. Only during those fleeting periods when it returned to the straight path of God's guidance has it experienced true elevation, fulfillment, and harmony. These are but some of the prominent markers within this surah. We have paused to reflect upon them in brief, though such reflections cannot possibly encompass their full depth and scope. They merely point to the profound truths contained within. And all praise is due to God, who has guided us to this, for we would not have been guided had he not guided us.